People do strange things when grief digs its claws in. Some curse the world. Some blame God. Everyone has their own way of dealing with pain. Mine was taking an axe to the trees on my family farm. The axe had been a birthday gift from my grandfather, the last family I had in this world. My parents died in a car accident when I was still a kid. He raised me afterward. He was always grumpy and bitter, like he hated the world more than it hated him. I didn't exactly love him, but he was still mine. I swung the axe again, burying it deep into the trunk of a tall 17-year-old tree. "Why won't you just break?" I yelled, breath steaming in the cold air. The sun was slipping behind heavy gray clouds. Rage boiled through me, enough to drown the ache in my arms. My family had a tradition. Whenever a baby was born, a tree was planted for them. This one was mine, and now I was chopping it down like it had personally wronged me. Thunder cracked somewhere above. The wind pushed at my back, almost urging me on. I hate this stupid tree. Just fall already. 2 hours passed. My palms were raw and bleeding. But the pain didn't matter. Nothing compared to the hole carved into me this week. I had lost 2 people in the span of 7 days. One to death. One to betrayal. That slut. I wish I could have cut her down like this tree. I laughed. It wasn't amusement. It was insanity born from heartbreak. Seeing the girl I loved with the football captain on the same day my grandfather died. It was too surreal to cry about. My brain broke before my heart could. Her excuse was even more pathetic. That she needed something new, needed someone different, someone who wasn't me. So I laughed, and then I broke her 2 front teeth. I snapped the guy's arm too. Didn't even feel guilty. A part of me wished I had done worse. The storm growing above matched the storm inside me. Wild, ugly, merciless. Rain poured down in sheets. Blood and mud ran together across my skin. Still, I kept chopping. The tree was halfway down. Everyone left me. Why are you still standing? Fall! Lightning exploded above me, blinding white. The blast threw me backward into the mud. A second later, a roaring boom followed. The tree I had been attacking was on fire, split down the middle, flames devouring its core. Tears blur my sight. You took everything from me, God. Everything. Can't I just have this one damn thing? Why do you take everything? Why? My voice cracked as I screamed into the storm. Take me too. Just end it. I'm begging you. Sirens wailed in the distance. I laughed bitterly. I asked for death, and the police showed up instead. I pushed myself up, bones aching. That bastard hit hard, I muttered, trying to stand. A strong gust knocked me down again, shoving me face first into the mud. Nothing ever goes right. Why am I even alive? Then came the crack. The burning tree, my tree, was falling toward me. I tried to move. Too slow. It crashed onto me with a sickening crunch. Bones snapped like twigs. The flame washed over me next. A wave of agony, like I had been thrown straight into hell. My body screamed, but the storm swallowed the sound. The irony wasn't lost on me. The tree planted to celebrate my birth was the same one burning me alive. I never imagined this would be my end. My dream had been simple: live quietly on the family farm, build a future with someone I loved, grow old in peace. Nothing grand, nothing selfish. Was that really too much to ask? Why does the world reward liars, cheaters, manipulators, the cruelest people imaginable, while people like me get left with nothing? Why do they get the life I wanted? Is it wrong to try to be decent? If I ever got another chance, maybe I'd live differently. Maybe I'd take what I wanted, instead of waiting for life to hand me scraps. Maybe I'd stop trusting so blindly. Maybe I'd be colder, crueler, stronger. Maybe. I miss arguing with that grumpy old man. He would have laughed if he saw me like this. Despite everything, he was the closest thing I had to family. And now I was dying alone. So damn alone. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on a sofa. Not a hospital bed. Not my burned to a crisp corpse. A plain, spotless white sofa in the middle of an empty white room. I jolted upright, heart pounding so hard I could hear it echo. Maybe it was because I'd just been burned alive, or maybe because I was somewhere that made absolutely no sense. The room was silent, too silent. A warm ceiling light cast soft shadows across the bare walls. Aside from the sofa beneath me, there was nothing. No doors, No windows, no furniture, no explanation. For several minutes, I sat in the stillness as ridiculous theories spiraled through my head. Heaven? Hell? Limbo? Purgatory? My skull throbbed. The only thing that made sense was that I was dead. Maybe this was heaven. More likely, considering how often I cursed at God. Hell. The emptiness dug under my skin with every passing second. Hello. I called out. Is anyone here? The moment the words left my mouth, a door shimmered into existence on the far wall, as if the room had been waiting for me to speak. It swung open. A middle-aged man stepped inside, looking exactly like Keanu Reeves. Same hair, same face, same effortless cool. He wore sunglasses, carried a notebook, and smiled at me like we were old friends. He sat down in a chair that hadn't existed a moment earlier. Removing his sunglasses, he said, "You're awake. Don't panic. I'm what you'd call an angel. Yes, you died. But good news, you won the lottery." He twirled his shades playfully while scribbling something in his notebook. I stared dumbfounded before blurting, "Aren't you Keanu Reeves?" His smile widened. He scooted his chair closer until he was practically in my personal space. "Do I look cool?" he asked proudly. "Keanu's my favorite actor. I'm a big fan, so I borrowed his appearance. We angels get bored. We watch movies all the time. John Wick is my favorite. What about you? Do you like John Wick?" He looked at me with hopeful, puppy-like excitement. Not sure how to handle a fanboy angel. I forced a smile. "Yeah, it's my favorite too." His eyes lit up like I'd just given him the meaning of life. "Great. Which movie is your favorite? Have you ever seen him in person? What do you think he's like? How many times have you watched?" He fired questions so fast I couldn't answer a single one. Then, like someone pressed mute, he stopped, cleared his throat, and straightened his back. "Sorry, we should discuss the lottery you won." The mood shift gave me whiplash. He continued, "God created a lottery for certain people who die under unusual circumstances. You met all the requirements. You chopped down a tree the same age as you during a rainstorm and died when it fell on you, while on fire. Very specific, very rare. Congratulations." I honestly didn't know whether to feel lucky or deeply offended. "So what exactly did I win?" I asked. "You earn a transmigration," he said cheerfully. "You'll be reborn into a fictional world." He checked his notebook again. Specifically, The Walking Dead. "Enjoy." A red door materialized beside him. He gestured at it with a flourish. I froze. The Walking Dead wasn't a reward. It was a life sentence with bonus zombies. "What? Can't I pick the world?" I demanded. He shook his head. "Can I at least have a power? Or an ability? Something?" Another shake. "How is this a lottery? This is a punishment." His expression softened. "It was supposed to be punishment. 100 years, actually. You cursed at God far too much." I stared at him. "Seriously?" He nodded casually, as if explaining a parking ticket. "But since you won, you're free from the punishment." That somehow did not make me feel better. Seeing my panic, he sighed. "Look, I like you, and you're a John Wick fan, so I'll use a special privilege to help. You're allowed to choose any fantasy body for your next life, but nothing too powerful for a zombie universe. John Wick, Punisher, James Bond, those levels are fine. Just remember, you only get the body, not their skills or memories." My excitement dropped. What's the point of John Wick's body without his skills? I'd still be me. "That's the rule," he said. "If you had their mind, you wouldn't be you anymore." "Okay, what about Captain America? Wolverine?" His face darkened. "Too strong." "Next." I figured as much. Then it hit me. Agent 47. Not superpowered, not immortal, but built to physical and mental perfection. Enhanced senses, reflexes, endurance, strength. A learning machine with a slow, aging process and absurd survivability. In The Walking Dead, that body was a godsend. "I want Agent 47, I said. Silence. The angel stared at me like I'd just asked for omnipotence. Finally, he sighed. "Fine, I'll allow it, but the world will adjust to balance it. Be careful." "Why?" "Agent 47 isn't that overpowered." The angel raised an eyebrow. "You have no idea." He lifted one finger. "He ages incredibly slowly. He can live 200 to 300 years." Second finger. He heals fast enough to recover from gunshots within hours. Third, his instincts are so sharp he can predict movement through walls. Fourth, he's stronger, faster, and more durable than any human on Earth. Fifth, in his aim, he has never missed. Not once. He crossed his arms, and that's just his body. I'm giving you accelerated learning instead of his assassin mind. Trust me, you do not want to be Agent 47 mentally. He was engineered for emotionless killing. Hearing it listed out like that was a lot. Still, relief washed over me. Thank you, I said sincerely. He nodded toward the red door. Whenever you're ready. I rose from the sofa, heart pounding. The door hummed with a faint glow. Without looking back, I stepped forward, ready to begin my new life.
Hey everyone, welcome to FanFic Canon. Thanks for hitting play. I'm thrilled to bring this fan-made story to life for you. If you enjoy the ride and want more narrated fanfics, smash, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. And if you want audiobook of a novel of your choice, join my Patreon. Request any title that's freely available online, and I'll produce a full narration just for you. Now, let's dive into today's adventure.
When I opened my eyes, I saw a dimly lit room. The only source of light was a gas lantern on the table, its flame flickering as if it might go out at any moment. Still, the glow felt warm and cozy, filling the small room with an earthy scent. The soft patter of rain against the window, combined with the blanket wrapped around me on the narrow bed, made me feel incredibly relaxed. Then suddenly, I became alert, realizing I was in the Walking Dead universe. I couldn't just lie here and relax, not in a place where danger could lurk anywhere. As I tried to get up, a sharp pain shot through my left leg, forcing a grimace. Pulling the blanket aside, I saw my leg was bandaged and worse, chained to the bed. That was bad news in a world like The Walking Dead. Then came an even more unsettling realization. My body was small. I was in the body of a teenager. Those two discoveries, being injured and being a teen, made my hands tremble. When the angel said there would be a little change to keep the balance, I never imagined this. A teen version of Agent 47, injured and helpless. How was I supposed to survive? The thought alone made my chest tighten with panic. Then, I heard footsteps approaching from behind the door. Instinctively, I pulled the blanket over myself and pretended to sleep. The heavy footsteps stopped at the door, which creaked open slowly. I cracked my eyes just enough to see who it was. Two men entered, both in their mid-30s, their postures slouched and their eyes heavy with exhaustion and despair. The one in front wore glasses and a brown shirt. His red, hollow eyes stared blankly at my sleeping body. The man behind him, dressed in a leather jacket, tapped his shoulder gently, trying to bring him back to reality. "Are you sure you want to do this, brother?" he asked quietly. The man with the glasses didn't respond. He simply raised his arm. Seeing that, the man in the jacket looked pained and helpless, reluctantly pulling a gun from his waistband and handing it over. "Brother, let me do it," he murmured. Still, no reply. If I had just gotten the medicine. "I'm sorry, brother. This is my fault." The man in glasses looked back slightly. "You can't do anything right, can you? Just leave me alone with my son for a moment." His son. My heart froze. He was talking about me. Why would he want to kill his own child? The man in the jacket hesitated. "Matthew now." The father barked, making him flinch. The once cozy room suddenly felt suffocating. Lowering his head, Matthew reluctantly left, closing the door behind him. Now it was just me and the man, my supposed father, who was about to shoot me. My heart pounded so fast, I thought it would give me away. My palms were slick with sweat. I didn't know what to do or say. Would he even believe me if I told him I was fine? He sat on the edge of the bed, placing the gun beside the lantern. "Forgive me, son," he whispered, "but I can't watch you turn into that monster. Don't be afraid. I'll be coming with you. Then we can finally see your mother again in heaven." Tears streamed down his face, making his red eyes glisten. He took off his glasses and wiped them with shaking hands. I recognized that expression instantly, the look of someone who had completely lost hope. "I wish I could have been a better father," he said softly. "I wish I'd been there when you needed me. I wish I hadn't blamed you. Max, my son, forgive me." His trembling hand rested on my shoulder. After a long silence, he reached for the gun again, aiming it at me with shaking hands. "Dad, what are you doing?" I said desperately, unable to keep quiet any longer. He froze. Seeing me awake, he dropped the gun and pulled me into a tight embrace, sobbing uncontrollably into my shoulder. Moments later, he pulled back, smiling through his tears. "You're awake and talking," he said, his voice trembling with disbelief. He pressed a hand to my forehead, and his smile grew wider. "Even the fever's gone. This is a miracle." He hugged me again, tighter this time, then quickly released me, worried he might hurt me. His eyes softened as he kissed my forehead. "I promise you, I'll never leave you again," he said firmly. "Your aunt and uncle will be so happy to hear this good news. Wait here, I'll go get them." Grabbing the gun, he hurried out of the room. Finally alone, I could think clearly. So, my name was Max. These people were my family, and they thought I'd been dying from sickness. That's why I was chained to the bed. They were preparing to put me down. From the looks of it, the original Max had died, and I had taken his place. The thought made me uneasy, but I accepted it, vowing to treat his family as my own. Once I confirmed the house was safe, my thoughts turned to the future. I had no memories of the original Max. What would I say if they began to suspect something? And what timeline was I even in? For what I could tell, the infection had already spread, but I didn't know how long it had been. There was no point worrying about that now. I'd figure it out eventually. For the moment, the problem of my missing memories was what I needed to focus on. Outside the door, I heard several footsteps approaching. I took a deep breath and braced myself for what was coming next. The door to the small, cozy room slammed open with a loud bang. A woman with blonde hair and blue eyes rushed in. Her face was swollen and red from crying, the kind of face that belonged to someone who had been grieving for far too long. Yet behind the tears, her eyes still held a spark of hope and compassion. When she saw me looking back at her, her knees buckled and she collapsed to the floor, sobbing. "Thank you, Lord, for hearing my prayers. Thank you for saving my child." She wept, her voice trembling with emotion. Matthew, who I assumed was my uncle, stood frozen, staring at me in disbelief as tears filled his eyes. Then, slowly, he knelt beside her and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Ava, honey, get up," he said softly. "It's not time for crying. Max is getting better. You should be happy. Come on, get up." At his words, Ava wiped her tears and sat beside me, checking my condition with a practiced, gentle touch, the kind that made me wonder if she had once been a nurse or doctor. "You really are my miracle child," she said, her smile breaking through her grief. "Yesterday, you looked pale as a ghost, and now look at you, healthy as a horse. Your blood pressure, temperature, everything's normal. Well, except for your fractured leg, but don't worry, sweetheart. You're still growing. It'll heal in a week's." Her grin stretched from ear to ear. Then she turned to the two men. "Today," she declared, "we're opening that bottle of wine you brought, Matthew. We'll celebrate this happy occasion, and I'll cook Max's favorite meal tonight. I won't be stingy this time." Both men smiled, their eyes soft with warmth, as if it had been too long since they'd seen her this happy. My father suddenly burst into laughter. "Ha ha! Matthew, your wife's so happy she's actually letting you drink. That's another miracle." Matthew frowned, feigning offense. "Oh yeah? What about you, John? Smoking those coffin nails every day like a chimney," he shot back with a grin. John smirked. "At least I didn't wander around naked in the middle of the night, drinking moonshine and flashing the dorm with 2 full moons." He broke into laughter, and even Ava couldn't help but giggle at the memory. Matthew turned to her in mock betrayal. "Even you're siding with him now? I wasn't expecting this from you, my love." Ava covered her mouth, still laughing. "Well, honey, you were kind of dumb in your youth," she teased, shaking her head fondly. John chuckled. "Ava, I'd show you the photo from that night if it wasn't still locked in my office drawer." Matthew's eyes widened in mock outrage. "You black lung, coffin nail smoking rat," he shouted before tackling John. The two men started wrestling on the floor, laughing like a pair of children, while Ava tried in vain to pull them apart. Watching them, I couldn't help but smile. The sight reminded me of my grandfather. We used to argue all the time, and I once thought that when he finally died, I'd feel free. Free from his lectures, his scolding, his endless advice. But when he actually passed away, the emptiness he left behind was unbearable. You never truly appreciate what you have until it's gone. Lost in thought, I barely noticed when the two men stopped their playful brawl and turned toward me. Ava's expression shifted instantly. Concern flooded her face as she rushed over and wrapped her arms around me. Her embrace was warm and comforting, so much so that for a moment I almost forgot the pain in my leg. Outside, the rain eased, and the room fell silent except for the gentle flicker of the lantern's flame. Ava pulled back slightly, worry etched deep in her features. "Max, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Are you in pain? Do you need medicine?" she asked rapidly, her voice trembling with panic. Then she turned to Matthew. "Go get me the pain medicine from downstairs." He nodded and hurried out of the room. John, my father, stepped closer, his face filled with the same desperate concern. Seeing how worried they all were, I felt something unfamiliar stir inside me, a warmth deep in my chest. I wondered if this was what it felt like to have a family, to be surrounded by people who genuinely cared. The feeling was foreign, but comforting. "I'm sorry," I said softly, "but I can't remember anything. It's just that your faces feel familiar." Ava's brows furrowed, her expression darkening with concern. I felt guilty seeing her worry, but I had no choice. I didn't have any of the original Max's memories. Pretending to be him would only lead to disaster. The best option was to feign memory loss. Any mistakes or odd behavior could easily be explained. John's eyes widened. He knelt in front of me, his voice shaking. "You remember me, right? You called me Dad. You must remember." I met his eyes and replied quietly, "I know you're my dad, but I don't remember anything else." His face tightened, anxiety shadowing his features. He turned toward Ava. "You're a biology professor. You must know what's happening. You've heard of this before, haven't you?" Ava took a steady breath, her tone calm but sad. "I think our little Max has amnesia," she said gently. "He's lost a significant portion of his memory." John stared at her, stunned. "What? How? What?" Ava hesitated, then spoke softly. "Severe memory loss can be caused by brain injury, trauma, illness, even exposure to certain chemicals. Any of those could trigger amnesia." She leaned closer to John, lowering her voice, but my enhanced hearing caught every word. "The child has suffered too much," she murmured. "First the cancer, and just a week after he was cured, the outbreak happened. He watched his grandparents get eaten alive by those things. His immune system was still weak from chemotherapy, so he fell ill easily. You don't know how hard it was to convince everyone he wasn't bitten, just sick. Even when you found us at the army base, he could barely speak. We thought the medicine and equipment there might save him, but within a week, the entire base was overrun. For the past 2 months, we've all been traumatized, especially that poor boy." John's fists clenched, guilt and rage flickering across his face. "I should have been there for him," he muttered. "Matthew's right. I'm a terrible father." Just then, Matthew returned, smiling faintly. "I got the medicine," he announced, but froze the moment he sensed the heavy mood in the room. "What happened?" Ava forced a small, weary smile. "Nothing serious," she said softly. "Come on, let's talk in the living room." Then she turned back to me, her eyes soft as she brushed away a tear. "Little Max, get some rest, all right? I'll wake you when dinner's ready." I nodded. "Thank you, are you, my auntie?" Her face froze. The warmth drained from her eyes, replaced by sudden sorrow. Tears welled up and slipped silently down her cheeks. Even the rain outside had stopped, as if the world itself had gone still. Seeing her cry sent a panic rushing through me. Did I say something wrong? "Honey, come on. Let Max rest," Matthew said quietly, placing a comforting arm around her shoulders and guiding her toward the door. My father lingered a moment longer, his gaze heavy with emotion I couldn't decipher. Then he slowly closed the door behind him. Once again, I was alone. What just happened? Alone in the small room, my mind began to drift toward the future. I'd watched a couple of seasons of The Walking Dead before, but that was a long time ago. I only remember the major events, and even those were a little fuzzy. Ever since I arrived here, my body had been slowly changing. I could feel it, like I was getting stronger with every passing minute. Even the pain in my leg had become manageable. My hearing had sharpened, my night vision had improved, and my senses overall were becoming unervingly acute. I could even pick up faint sound from outside the house. My body was changing slowly to that of Agent 47. After unfastening the chain around my leg, I cautiously stood. This time, the pain was mild, just a dull, lingering ache. I took a few careful steps toward the corner of the room, where a small mirror hung on the wall. I lifted it and stared at my reflection. One thing stood out immediately: my bald head. I looked like Saitama from One Punch Man. True to the angel's words, I was in Agent 47's body, but a younger version of it. Judging by my appearance, I looked around 13 or 14 years old. I had been burned to death when I was 17, so this body was 3 or 4 years younger than my original one. Thankfully, there was no barcode on the back of my head. From downstairs, I heard faint voices. Curious, I decided to find out what was happening. Quietly, I crept toward the door, making sure not to make a sound. I turned the handle slowly, careful not to let it creak, and peeked outside. The hallway was dim and narrow. 2 doors stood opposite each other, one clearly marked as a bathroom by a faded sign, which made me assume the other led to another bedroom. Almost all the windows along the hall were barricaded with wooden planks, blocking out most of the light and casting deep shadows across the walls. I crept down the stairs, following the faint sound of conversation. From behind the corner of a wall, I could see Ava sitting on the sofa, clearly sad. The room was dimly lit by a single lantern, the same kind as the one in my room, but it wasn't enough to brighten up the space. Combined with the barricaded windows, the atmosphere felt gloomy and suffocating. I stayed hidden, listening carefully. Ava, don't be sad. Max will remember you, and he'll call you mother again, just like he used to. John, my father, said gently, trying to comfort her. Here, have a drink, honey. There's no need to be sad. We should be happy that our boy is alive. Matthew handed her a glass of wine, hoping to distract her. Ava accepted it reluctantly. I am happy, it's just... She whispered, tears welling in her eyes. You know I can't be a mother. Matthew sat beside her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. I've treated Max like my own son ever since he was a toddler, Ava said through trembling lips. Every time he called me mother, my heart filled with joy. But today, when he called me Annie, I felt like I'd lost my child forever. She wiped her tears and let out a shaky laugh. I know I sound like a crazy woman. I'll go cook something for Max now. Before she could stand, Matthew took her hand. Honey, we all know how much you love Max, and he loves you just as much. You've cared for him like a mother since he was a baby. I'm sure he'll remember you. Just give it time, he said softly. A faint smile touched Ava's lips as she nodded. Thank you, honey. With that, she headed to the kitchen on the left. I hadn't realized that the original owner of this body, Max, used to call his aunt Mother. No wonder she looked so heartbroken when I called her Auntie. From now on, I'd call her Mom, too. I didn't like seeing her sad. It was strange, feeling sad over someone I'd only met an hour ago. I didn't understand why, but seeing her cry made something inside me ache. Peeking around the wall again, I noticed my father's face twisted in guilt. Matthew caught sight of him and frowned. What's wrong with you, John? Why do you look like you just swallowed shit? He teased, trying to lighten the mood. John forced a smile, but quickly faded. Shut up, you idiot, he said, though his voice lacked bite. Then after a pause, he sighed. I was happy for a few seconds when I heard Max had lost his memory. He took a deep breath and continued. I thought maybe I could start over, be a better father this time. Make new memories where he remembers me as a good dad, not the one who blamed him for his mother's death. Not the father who abandoned him when he was just a toddler. Not the father who was too busy working to visit him, even when he had cancer. His voice cracked. I'm a piece of shit for feeling that way. Once again, I'm running away from my responsibilities, like a coward. He paused for a moment, his shoulders trembling. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he added. You know, I was planning to kill myself after I shot him. The words hung heavily in the air. He stopped mid-sentence, his head lowering until his gaze fell to the floor. He couldn't bring himself to look at his brother. Matthew sat silently beside him, unable to find words of comfort. Instead, he handed John the wine bottle. Thanks, John muttered before taking a long drink. The room grew quiet, broken only by the soft sound of chopping coming from the kitchen. The entire house felt eerily still. 3 rooms in total, 2 upstairs and 1 below. The air was cold, colder than the small room I'd been staying in. When nothing else happened, I moved toward the barricaded window. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a thick fog that made it hard to see outside. From what I could make out, we were in a suburban area, small houses, no tall buildings. That was good. Fewer people meant fewer walkers. I hadn't killed anyone before, but I had a feeling that if I needed to, I could. Satisfied that there was no danger nearby, I quietly went back upstairs. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet, not loudly, but enough to make me cautious. Back in my room, I decided to rest. The place felt safe, and for the first time in a while, I was exhausted not physically, but mentally. So much had happened in the past few weeks, and I desperately needed a break. Honey, wake up. I jolted awake, startled by the sudden voice. My heart pounded as I looked around, only to see Ava standing beside me, an apologetic look on her face. I'm sorry, did I scare you? She asked softly. Realizing it was just her, I shook my head. No, you didn't, Mom. The moment the word Mom left my lips, her face lit up with pure joy. A tear slipped down her cheek as she pulled me into a tight embrace, so tight it almost hurt. She smelled faintly of jasmine, sweet and calming. After a while, she finally let go, her face glowing with happiness. Her eyes were full of compassion, gentle, loving, and maternal. I couldn't help but smile back. Warmth flooded my chest. So, this is what it feels like to have a mother. My own mother had died when I was young, so I never knew what that love felt like. But if I had to guess, it must be like this, warm, safe, and comforting. For the first time, I envied those who still had their parents, people who got to feel this kind of love every day. Some are born unlucky, like me. But right now, for once, I felt lucky too. I thought the Walking Dead world would bring only suffering, but I hadn't realized that even suffering could feel this comforting. From the bottom of my heart, I hoped Ava would smile more often. She looked beautiful when she did. Max, honey, can you say mother again? She asked, covering her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. Mom, I whispered. She broke down completely, hugging me again, sobbing softly against my shoulder. Her body trembled as she cried, but somehow her embrace soothed my restless heart. The anger and grief I had carried for so long melted away in that moment. I never imagined a single word from me could bring someone so much happiness. When she finally calmed down, she wiped away her tears and spoke in a shaky voice. Do you remember me, little Max? I wanted so badly to say yes, to protect that hopeful look in her eyes, but I couldn't lie. My chest tightened as I lowered my gaze. No, I don't remember. I'm sorry. Her warm hand slid off my shoulder, leaving behind a strange emptiness. Quickly, I added, even if I don't remember you, I know I used to call you Mother. When I think about what a mother should look like, your face comes to mind. I prayed silently that my small lie would bring her some comfort. Look at me, honey, she said gently. Reluctantly, I lifted my head. She was smiling, a soft, radiant smile that made my throat tighten. I didn't even know why I was getting so emotional. Maybe it was the grief over my grandfather's death, or the pain of betrayal from my ex. Maybe it was loneliness. Whatever it was, it didn't feel bad. It had been so long since I'd smiled sincerely. She squeezed my hand and said tenderly, Don't feel sorry, honey. I'm happy that you still call me Mom. I will pray to God that your memory comes back soon. Then, chuckling softly, she tapped her head. I almost forgot why I came here. The food's ready. Come eat, sweetheart. Your favorite, peanut butter and jelly with a sunny side-up egg, just the way you like it. Smiling, I nodded. That was all I could do. Now get up, you sleepyhead, she said playfully, patting my shoulder. I tried to rise. Max, slow down. You're still injured, she said quickly, her voice full of concern. Even though I didn't really need help, I pretended for her sake. She slipped her arm under mine, supporting my weight as we made our way downstairs together. Her warmth beside me made the small, dark world outside feel just a little less frightening. As I got closer to the dining table, the smell of food hit me, rich and savory, making my stomach growl before I even sat down. My father and Uncle Matthew were already there, sitting in the dim light of a single lantern. Its flickering glow danced across their tired faces, casting long shadows on the walls. The lantern's soft light felt like a small beacon of hope in the dark, cold house. 3 plates were set on the worn wooden table. Each held a small serving of bean and carrot soup, though there was clearly more water than vegetables. The portions looked too small for grown men. From the corner of my eye, I noticed 2 empty bean cans lying on the kitchen island. Even though the kitchen was dark, my eyes, sharper than ever, could make out every detail in the low light. Ava guided me gently to a chair as my father raised his hand in greeting. "How are you feeling, kid?" he asked with a warm smile. "I'm feeling okay," I replied, returning it. Ava went back to the kitchen to fetch my plate, but before my father could speak again, Matthew's slightly slurred voice cut in. "That's good to hear, Max." My father's smile faded. "Didn't I tell you to drink a little bit?" Irritation creeping into his tone. Matthew looked away. "Brother, it was just a little. I'm fine, I swear." He straightened up, trying to look sober, but my father's eyes narrowed. "You'd better be fine," he said firmly. Before the tension could grow, Ava returned, carrying my plate. "Here you go, honey, your food." Finally, some food. I was getting hungry. This would be my first meal in the Walking Dead world. The meal she placed in front of me looked amazing. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a sunny-side-up egg. Simple, but made with love. Out of all the plates, mine had the largest portion. Seeing that made my chest feel warm. It reminded me of my grandfather, who used to give me the best cuts of venison whenever we ate together. "Thank you," I said quietly. Her smile softened. "Don't mention it, honey." But her eyes glowed with happiness at my appreciation. Ava clasped her hands and said a short prayer for the food. Then we began eating. The only sounds were the gentle clinks of spoons and the faint hiss of rain outside. Even though the house was cold and silent, sharing a meal together made it feel warm, like I belonged here, like I was meant to be part of this little family. After a moment, Ava spoke in a bright, cheerful tone. "Do you know what happened today? Our little Max called me Mom again. Some of his memory must be returning. Isn't that wonderful?" Both men's faces lit up. Maybe they were happy for me, or maybe they were just relieved to see Ava smiling again. For once, the gloom in the house had lifted. "That's really wonderful, Ava," my father said, grinning. "Yes, that's wonderful news, honey," Matthew added, still a bit drunk, but sincere. Their happiness filled the room like warmth from a long-dead fire. But there was something I had to know, a question that had been burning in my mind since I woke up here. I hesitated, then spoke. "I know I've lost my memories, but can you tell me how old I am? Where are we? And what's happening out there? Maybe it'll help me remember." The room fell silent. No one spoke for several seconds. Finally, my father sighed and looked at me. "Well, Max, you're 14 years old. When you were 8, you got cancer. The chemotherapy cured it, but it also made you lose your hair permanently." He paused, his face tightening. "As for where we are, this is your grandmother's house, in Macon, Georgia." He looked toward Ava and Matthew. They gave him small, hesitant nods, encouraging him to continue. As for what's happening, he drew a deep breath. 2 months ago, everything changed. It started as rumors, people getting sick, acting strange. The government tried to hide it at first, but when the police and army started shooting at things that should have been dead, they couldn't hide it anymore. He swallowed hard. The CDC called it the wildfire virus. It's an airborne pathogen, one that reanimates the dead. The words hung heavy in the air. When the news broke, people panicked, he continued quietly. Stores were looted, roads jammed. The government ordered quarantines, and when people tried to flee, the police opened fire. Hospitals collapsed, the power grid failed, and one by one, the cities went dark. The military tried to hold the line, but they couldn't. The chain of command broke. The government fell apart. And then, he stared down at his half-empty bowl. Then the world ended. Most of humanity turned into those things. At first, we thought the infection only spread through bites, but soon, even the unbitten started turning. That's when we realized we're all infected. Every single one of us. When we die, we become them. His words carried a grim finality that sent a chill through me. The air in the room felt heavy and still. Even though I had expected this, after all, I knew this world, I couldn't stop the shiver crawling up my spine. The apocalypse wasn't a story anymore. It was real, and I was living it. "John, stop scaring the child," Ava cried, snapping me out of my daze. "Did I go a little overboard?" my father asked, his expression apologetic as he looked at her. Ava crossed her arms and nodded with a serious look. Turning back to me, he sighed. "Sorry, kid. I didn't mean to frighten you. I just blurted out too much bad news at once. I should have been more careful." I nodded quietly in acknowledgement. "But don't be scared," he added, forcing a smile. "We're all here for you." I smiled faintly and nodded again. Still, my hands were trembling under the table. It's fun watching zombie apocalypse shows from the safety of your couch, maybe even imagining yourself surviving one with ease. I used to be one of those people. But imagination and reality, they're vastly different things. Until now, I hadn't taken this situation seriously. But now, realization finally hit me. This wasn't a movie or a TV show. I was living in a world where I could die at any moment. The thought alone made my heartbeat race. Then, I felt a warm hand rest gently on my shoulder. I looked up. It was Ava. She had pulled her chair closer, her soft eyes filled with concern. "It's okay to be scared," she said soothingly. "Even I'm scared. Everyone here is scared. But you know what's not scary? We're together, as a family. Don't be afraid, Max. We're here for you." Her voice was calm and motherly, and somehow, it grounded me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I'm really a fucking idiot," my dad muttered under his breath. Unfortunately for him, my heightened hearing easily picked it up. My Uncle Matthew walked over, draping his arm around my shoulders. The strong smell of wine clung to him. "Little Max," he said with a grin, "don't worry. Everyone's scared. Look at me. Even your brave uncle is scared of your mother." Ava smacked his shoulder playfully. "Oh, really? Do I look that scary to you, Matthew?" Realizing his attempt to lighten the mood had backfired, he started panicking. "Of course not, honey. You're the love of my life, my only hope in this dark world. How could I be scared of you? You're harmless, like a fly." Ava narrowed her eyes. "So now I'm a filthy little fly that eats garbage?" Matthew stammered helplessly, completely trapped by his own words. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha." For the first time in this world, I laughed with all my heart. I had learned long ago that you never win an argument against a woman. The wisest thing to do is surrender gracefully and move on. Seeing me laugh freely made all three of them smile gently. So I'd been tricked, but it wasn't a bad feeling. They truly cared about me. Seeing how much they worried, how hard they tried to make me feel safe, it made me realize how deeply they loved me. "Laugh more often, Max," Ava said softly, her eyes glowing with warmth. "You look so cute when you do." The room was quiet and dim. It was cold enough to be uncomfortable, yet my heart felt warm. Then, bang, bang, a gunshot shattered the peaceful moment. The sound came from the front door behind me. Before anyone could react, another loud crash echoed through the house, the door being kicked open. I spun around. A man stood in the doorway, the lock blown apart by gunfire. Rain streamed off his heavy leather jacket, pooling at his boots as he stepped inside, each footfall echoing through the small house like a warning. He raised his pistol. Even from across the room, I could see the rage burning in his eyes, raw, unfiltered hatred that made the air feel heavier, sharper. "Found you, motherfucker," he shouted. A man stood in the doorway, the lock blown apart by gunfire. Smoke curled from the barrel of his pistol. Rain streamed from his heavy leather jacket, pooling at his feet as he stepped inside, each boot step echoing ominously through the dim room. He raised his handgun, sweeping it across the room until it was aimed at all of us in turn. My father instinctively reached for the pistol tucked behind his back. "Don't you fucking move, or I'll blow your head off," the man barked, his voice dripping with venom. He looked to be in his 40s, weathered face, eyes burning with fury. I could feel in my gut. If any of us so much as twitched, he'd shoot. My father froze, then slowly raised his hands in surrender. The intruder moved closer, water dripping from his coat and boots, soaking the wooden floor. Outside, the rain poured harder, pounding in rhythm with my racing heartbeat. He stopped only a few feet away. I was frozen, terrified. The sheer helplessness of having your life in someone else's hands was unbearable. I didn't know what to do except stay perfectly still. "Listen, man, I don't know who you are or what you want," Matthew said carefully. "Just take whatever you need and go. We don't want any trouble." Ava quickly pulled me behind her, shielding me with her body. The man's aim snapped toward her. "Move again, and I swear to God, I'll shoot," he growled. "Please, calm down," Matthew urged, his voice steady but his eyes darting, searching for any opening. "We're not your enemies. You can take anything from this house," my father added quietly, trying to defuse him. "Just leave us alone." The man let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. No, I'm not here to steal. I just came to talk before I kill you all." He waved the gun erratically, his movements jerky and unstable. Then he stopped and fixed his gaze on my father. "Especially you motherfucking thief." Everyone froze. Ava trembled, clutching me tighter. I could hear her heart pounding rapidly, yet she didn't move an inch, still shielding me from danger. "Throw your gun, slowly," the man ordered. "Do anything stupid, and I'll blow her head off. Understand?" My father nodded, pulled his pistol from behind his back, and tossed it gently to the floor near Matthew's feet. "So," the man said, pacing the room with slow, heavy steps, "having a nice little family dinner, huh? Sit down, all of you." We hesitated, but one glare from him was enough. We sat. My hands trembled under the table. The same dining room that had felt so warm moments ago now felt suffocating. He began circling the table. "Now, let's talk like adults. My name is Henry Moore. I used to work as a janitor at a school. I had a wife and 3 kids, 2 boys and a little girl." My father exchanged a subtle glance with Matthew. Matthew's eyes flicked toward the pistol on the floor. Henry's voice cracked, trembling with rage and grief. "I lost my 2 boys trying to escape town. All I had left was my wife and daughter." My father tried to keep him talking. What does that have to do with us?" Henry's expression twisted. He lunged forward and smashed the butt of his gun into my father's head. "Everything, you son of a bitch," he shouted, striking him again. "Everything." Blood ran down my father's temple as he grunted in pain. Ava screamed, tears streaming down her face as she tried to stand, but fear rooted her in place. My body wouldn't listen. My heart thrashed in my chest like it wanted out. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a gunshot waiting to happen. John lifted his head, blood trickling down his cheek. "We don't even know you. Why are you doing this?" Henry pressed the barrel of his gun to John's forehead. "But I know you, John Walker. I've been tracking you for weeks." His voice trembled with fury. 2 weeks ago, you stole medical supplies, antibiotics, painkillers from a woman with a cane. She begged you not to take them, but you didn't listen. You didn't hear her cries." He glared down at him. "That woman was my wife." John's eyes widened as realization hit him. I didn't know. I was desperate. My son was dying." "I'm sorry," he stammered. Henry struck him again, a vicious punch that sent blood splattering across the table. "You thought you were the only one desperate. My family needed that medicine too. Do you know how hard we worked to get it? And you just took it." His voice grew louder, shaking with grief and rage. His hands trembled as he paced. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear over it. He stopped behind my chair. I felt the cold metal of the gun press against the back of my head. Ava let out a broken cry. "Please don't. My daughter was about the same age as your son. Henry said quietly, his tone twisted with sorrow. She needed that medicine. Because of you, she died. I was the one who had to put a bullet in her head before she turned. Tap, tap, tap. He began tapping the gun against my skull, each tap making my body flinch. Ava sobbed uncontrollably. Don't you dare hurt my son. You have a problem with me. Take it out on me, my father shouted, panic edging every word. Bang! Henry fired. The shot tore through the air, splintering the silence. Yeah! Ava screamed, her voice shattering the air. My father froze, face pale as death. Don't move, Henry barked, aiming his smoking pistol toward Matthew, who was trying to reach for the gun on the floor. Sit down, we're still talking. Matthew clenched his fists but obeyed, rage burning behind his eyes. Henry's voice cracked again as he continued. After my daughter died, my wife, she couldn't live with it. She killed herself. His breathing was ragged. You took everything from me, John. So now, I'll take everything from you. Please, Ava cried, clasping her hands together. Please don't hurt my son. Take my life instead. Don't you dare hurt them. Matthew growled. They're innocent. I'm the one who stole the medicine. My father shouted desperately. Kill me if you have to, but leave them alone. Henry let out a hollow, broken laugh. Why do you get to live with your family while mine rots in the ground? Why does your son get to survive? John's eyes filled with tears. You're right. You have every right to be angry, he said shakily. If I'd known you had a daughter, I never would have taken it. Please let them go. I'm the sinner here. Kill me if you have to, but don't hurt them. Henry's hand trembled violently. His breathing grew ragged, each inhale sounding more like a sob than a breath. Fury and grief twisted across his face as he stared down at John, who was begging for his family's life. We're done talking, Henry said at last, his voice low and broken. I've got nothing left. Bang! The gunshot echoed like thunder. I froze, unable to move or even think. Warm liquid splattered across my face. Ewa! Ava's horrified scream tore through the silence as pieces of flesh and blood hit the table. Slowly, I looked up, only to see Henry's head blown open, his body collapsing lifelessly to the floor. He'd shot himself. The body hit the floor with a heavy thud. I stayed frozen, staring at Henry's blown open head. Gunpowder still hung in the air. Rain tapped against the windows. Nobody spoke. The room spun. My stomach twisted violently, and I nearly collapsed. Ava caught me before I hit the ground, pulling me into her arms. My whole body trembled uncontrollably. The horror of what I'd just seen was something my mind couldn't process. I'd always thought I was tougher than this. I used to hunt with my grandfather. Dead animals never bothered me. But there's a world of difference between animals and humans. I told myself that if survival demanded it, I could kill people or undead without hesitation. But now I knew better. Saying it and doing it were not the same. When that gun was pressed against my head, I froze. I've been so afraid I could barely breathe, powerless to move or think. What if one of them had been killed because of me? The thought made my stomach twist again. My fists clenched until my nails cut into my palms. I hated the sound of my own breathing. It was too weak, too scared. I felt pathetic. I wanted to hit something. I was still that same useless version of myself, watching from the sidelines, doing nothing, letting other people take what was mine. But I couldn't stay like that. Not now. Now when I finally had a family again. I couldn't let anyone harm what I loved. Not ever. I've already lost too much. If I lost this, what would be left worth living for? I forced myself to look at Henry's body. The sight was gruesome and haunting, but I had to get used to it if I wanted to survive. He reminded me of myself, broken, angry, grieving. The only difference was that he'd lost his reason to live, and I had only just found mine. I pitied him, maybe because deep down I saw my past self in him, but that had to change. If another man like Henry ever came for us again, I wouldn't freeze in terror. I'd fight back. I wouldn't make the same mistake twice. I'd kill them all if I had to. I had to be strong, not for me, but for the people I cared about. Matthew grabbed John's shoulder, spinning him around. His face burned with anger. You said you found the medicine, not that you stole it from some helpless woman. John, bruised and bleeding, glared back. Then what the hell was I supposed to do? Watch my son die? I had no choice. Matthew's voice hardened. You're a heartless businessman, willing to do anything for your own selfish reasons. John wiped blood from his cheek. So what if I am? At least I did everything I could to save what I have left. What about you, Matthew? Well, I told you to grab the medicine from that group while I distracted them. What did you do? Even when you had it in your hands, you left it behind. If my son hadn't miraculously recovered, I'd never have forgiven you. Matthew's glare deepened. There were others who were sick, just like Max. I couldn't let them die just to save ourselves. But what can I expect from you? The same cold, selfish man who abandoned his son when he was just a toddler. The man who didn't even visit when his boy had cancer. You've always run from responsibility, John. You're still that same coward. John looked away, then turned toward Ava and me. His voice was quiet. Yeah, I know what I am, but I don't regret taking that medicine. Not even now. I can live with the guilt of the world, but I can't live with losing any of you. Matthew's jaw tightened. What you did was still wrong. He pointed at Henry's lifeless body. Don't let your mistakes drag us all to hell. Ava stepped between them. Enough. This isn't the time. The undead must have heard the gunfire. The rain's covering it for now, but this place isn't safe. They'll smell the blood. We need to move. Now. As soon as she spoke, a low, guttural growl echoed from the shattered front door. One of them was already there. What shocked me was its speed. It wasn't shambling like in the shows. It moved faster, almost a jog. My father snatched the gun lying near Matthew's feet and fired. The shot cracked through the air, and the walker dropped instantly. But through the rain and darkness, I could see dozens more coming. Too many to count. Dad, there are more, I shouted. He looked outside, panic flashing across his face as the horde surged toward the house. Matthew, help me with the table. Ava, upstairs. Get the crowbar and unbarricade the back door. We'll hold them off. The front exit was lost. My father and uncle heaved the dining table sideways and braced it against the door. Groans and fists pounded from outside. The wood creaked under pressure. I grabbed the pistol from Henry's cold fingers and slipped it into the back of my pants. My eyes scanned the room until they landed on a heavy-looking cabinet against the wall. I sprinted to it and shoved. To my shock, it slid easily. My leg didn't even ache anymore. I hadn't realized how strong I'd become. It must be because I was in Agent 47's body. With a growl, I pushed harder until the cabinet slammed against the front door, reinforcing the barricade. Matthew and John stared for a second, stunned, then threw their shoulders back beside me. Ava raced downstairs with the crowbar, prying loose the board from the back door. Every time the undead slammed into the barricade, the entire room shook. It's almost clear, come on. Ava shouted. Max, Matthew, go. I'll be right behind you. I hesitated, unwilling to leave my father, but one look from him told me to run. Matthew grabbed my wrist and pulled. Let's go. Ava had just freed the last board. Where's John? She cried. Behind us. Get to the car. Matthew barked, kicking the door open. We sprinted into the downpour. The rain came down in sheets, so thick we could barely see the car's outline. As we ran, a walker lunged from the shadows and grabbed Ava from behind. She fought back with the crowbar, but it was too strong, its teeth closing in on her neck. Without thinking, I drew the gun and fired. The shot tore through the walker's skull, dropping it instantly. I turned to Ava, my chest tightening. Are you all right, Mom? I asked, the concern plain on my face. She looked down at herself, then back at me with a shaky breath. No bite. Relief flooded through me. Yes, I'm fine, she said, forcing a nervous smile. Thank you, honey. Moo, Matthew shouted. Seeing both of us was fine. We scrambled into the car. Matthew jammed the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life, headlights slicing through the storm. Then we saw them, hundreds of walkers pouring toward the house. Matthew's voice cracked. John, come on. Don't you dare stay behind. We all looked back, desperate, praying he'd make it in time. Through the rain, a figure burst into view. John. He was sprinting full tilt, the horde at his heels. I'm coming, he screamed. He dove into the front seat and slammed the door shut. Drive, he barked. Matthew floored the gas pedal. The tires screamed, mud spraying as the car shot forward. The house vanished behind us, swallowed by thunder and rain. We drove into the darkness, shaking, drenched, but alive. No one spoke. The windshield wipers beat like a metronome over our shallow breaths. Blood, rain, and smoke filled the car. Alive. For now. We left the horde of undead behind us, swallowed by the storm and darkness. Nobody said a word. The only sounds were the steady swish of the wipers, the drumming of rain on the roof, and the low hum of the engine. Uncle Matthew drove in silence, his knuckles white on the wheel. Ava, and I could feel the quiet tension between him and my father. My mother still had her arms wrapped tightly around me, as if she were afraid I might disappear. The car smelled of wet leather, sweat, and blood thick, metallic, and sour. It clung to my clothes, my skin, my throat. I looked down at myself. My clothes were soaked and stained, my hands still slick with someone else's blood. The smell made me sick, but there was nothing we could do about it now. Outside, the world was pitch black. Even my sharpened sight couldn't pierce beyond the headlights. Just darkness swallowing the highway. We were on I-16, heading south, away from Macon. Away from that house. I leaned my head against the window, watching the blur of rain streaking past. My mind replayed everything. The fight, the gunfire, Henry's face. My stomach turned again, but this time I managed to hold it down. Then I noticed something. The pain in my leg, the one that had been nearly useless a few hours ago, was gone. Completely gone. I flexed it, pressing my heel into the floorboard. Nothing. No ache, no strain. Ava had said the injury would take weeks to heal. It hadn't even been a full day. Sometimes I forget that I'm inside Agent 47's body, his strength, his vitality. It's almost superhuman. The man could heal from gunshot wounds in hours and keep going. He aged slower than anyone else. At 60, he looked barely 30. I could feel it even now, my body changing further. My heartbeat was stronger, steadier. My breathing smoother. Every sense sharpening with every second. I could feel Matthew's tight grip on the wheel, hear my father's quiet grunts of pain. I could even sense my mother's heartbeat beside me, and faint movement far off the road. It was strange, frightening, even, but I couldn't deny the relief that came with it. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't completely powerless. Internally, I whispered a silent thank you to the angel who had given me this body. John, do you need pain medication? Ava's voice was soft, breaking the silence. I brought some with me before we left. Even in the dim light, I could see the worry in her eyes. My father's face was still swollen and bruised from the beating he'd taken. From the front seat, he turned slightly, his voice rough but steady. No, Ava, I can handle this much pain. Let's save the painkillers for an emergency. Besides, he glanced down at his trembling hands. I think this pain is what I deserve for what I did. So don't feel bad for me. Ava opened her mouth to protest, but, seeing the stubbornness in his eyes, sighed and let it go. You don't have to act tough, Matthew said quietly, eyes fixed on a rain-slicked road. Just take one. John stared at him for a moment, but said nothing, turning his gaze back toward the windshield. For a while, the only sound was the steady rhythm of rain and the hum of tires against wet asphalt. Then Matthew spoke again, his voice softer this time. I'm sorry for what I said, brother. My father didn't turn his head, didn't even glance at him. He just muttered, just shut up and drive before you hit someone. Matthew smirked faintly, a hint of warmth breaking through the tension. I may not agree with how you do things, he said, but I know you'll always fight for us. You always have. Just like when you used to beat up anyone who bullied me. John let out a short breath that was almost a laugh. Are you trying to make me cry? Just keep your eyes on the road before you kill us all. Despite everything, the exhaustion, the blood, the fear, I saw a small smile tug at Ava's lips. For the first time since the chaos, there was a flicker of peace inside that car. The brothers weren't arguing anymore. The air felt lighter. I couldn't help but smile too, feeling some of the weight finally ease off my chest. Ava, John said after a moment, his tone turning worried, can you check Max's leg? I'm afraid he might have strained it again after everything that happened. Matthew turned slightly, concern in his eyes. I've been thinking the same thing. He pushed that cabinet hard back there. It might have reopened the wound. Ava quickly reached down and began to unwrap the bandage from my leg. But when she peeled it back, she froze. Her eyes widened. Ow, how is this possible? She whispered. What happened? Both John and Matthew asked at once, alarm flashing in their voices. There's nothing to worry about, Ava said finally, her expression shifting from shock to relief. I'm just amazed. The wound's completely gone. Not even a scar. John blinked in disbelief, and Matthew exhaled a shaky laugh. Well, finally some good news. From the way the kid ran, I figured it must have healed. Everyone seemed to relax at that. The tension in the car softened a little, replaced by cautious relief. Thankfully, no one suspected anything more. After a while, silence returned, comforting this time, not heavy. Matthew, Ava said gently, still holding me close, we should stop somewhere soon. It's not safe to keep driving in the dark. I agree with you, honey, he replied, eyes on the road. But I don't see anywhere safe to pull over. I know this road well, my father said, glancing out the rain-streaked window. About a mile ahead, there's a small motel. I used to stay there during business trips. It's not much, but it'll do for the night. No one argued. We were all too tired, physically, mentally, emotionally. A few minutes later, Matthew took the next exit. The car rolled into a small, cracked parking lot. The rain softened into a drizzle as we pulled up in front of a weathered sign that barely glowed in the dark, Haven Motel. It wasn't big, just a narrow, two-story building with peeling paint and flickering lights. But right now, it looked like salvation. Matthew parked near the entrance and killed the engine. The sudden silence rang in my ears, louder than any gunshot. Okay, we're here, my father said, scanning the dark outline of the motel through the windshield. This place may not be safe, so Matthew and I will go ahead and check it out. Both of you stay in the car. His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. He turned toward me. Max, give your uncle the gun. I nodded and handed the pistol over to Matthew. Ava hesitated, then passed her crowbar to John. I hope we don't have to use these, Matthew muttered, checking the weapon. Gunfire will only attract more of them. I hope so too, my father replied. I've only got 3 bullets left. What about you? Matthew ejected the magazine, studying it carefully before answering. 11 rounds. He paused, then pulled out 4 bullets and handed them to my father. Thanks, John said, slipping them into his pocket. Both men exchanged a brief, wordless nod, a silent understanding between brothers who'd already seen too much tonight. They opened their doors, the sound of the rain rushing in for a brief moment. Stay here, my father said, his tone sharp. No matter what you hear, don't come out until we tell you it's safe. Got it. Ava and I both nodded. Before stepping out, Matthew handed the gun back to me. Use it to protect your mother, he said quietly, taking a wrench from the glove box. I nodded, my heart pounding. Without another word, John and Matthew stepped into the drizzle, their silhouettes quickly swallowed by fog and the dim yellow glow of the motel's flickering sign. We waited in the dark parking lot, the flickering motel sign painting the hood in pale, stuttering light. Ava held me close as we sat in silence, the rain softening to a whisper against the windshield. The world outside felt heavy, like the storm had drained all color from it. A few minutes passed. Then, faintly, I heard something, a noise low and distant. I couldn't tell what it was exactly, but it made me tense. My sharpened senses told me it wasn't the undead, yet I couldn't shake the worry that something might have gone wrong. Before my thoughts could spiral, I heard faint footsteps through the fog. My muscles tensed as I turned toward the sound, but then I saw them. My father and Matthew emerged from a mist, and behind them walked a young man, no older than 20. Ava, Max, my father called. You can come out. It's safe. I hesitated, eyes fixed on the stranger, until I saw the calm in my father's face. Only then did I open the door. This is Rohan Patel, my father said. He's the son of this motel's owner. He gestured toward us. Rohan, this is my son, Max, he added, resting a hand on my shoulder. Rohan's eyes widened for a moment when he saw me, then quickly darted away. And this is my sister-in-law, Ava, my father continued. Nice to meet you, Max, Rohan said politely, reaching out to shake my hand. His grip was hesitant but friendly. Then he turned to Ava, offering his hand, but she didn't take it. The wariness in her eyes said enough. The moment hung awkwardly in the air. All right, Uncle Matthew broke the silence. Let's not stand around out here. Let's get inside. We followed them into the motel. The hallways were narrow and dim, the air thick with mildew and dust. Most of the doors were broken, some hanging loose, others splintered and stained with old blood. Shattered windows letting gusts of damp wind. Finally, we reached the upper floor, where a few rooms looked untouched. My father opened one of them. I glanced inside, but then froze. From the next room, I heard something, faint movement, soft breathing. Human. Without thinking, I drew my handgun and aimed it toward the sound that was coming from the door. Everyone stopped, startled by the sudden movement. Whoever's in there, come out, I shouted, or I'll shoot. My hand shook, but I kept the barrel steady. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I wouldn't let anything hurt my family either. Please, don't hurt me, I'll do it, please, a voice cried out. The door creaked open, and a young girl, maybe 18 or 19, stepped out slowly, her hands trembling. Fear was written all over her face. Her hair was tangled, and her clothes were torn and dirty. Wait, kid, it's okay, Rohan said quickly, moving between us. She's not a threat. She's my sister, Anika. I lowered my weapon, realizing she was unarmed. You didn't mention anyone else being here, Matthew said, narrowing his eyes. Why did you lie? I wasn't lying, Rohan said quickly. I just didn't want to risk her safety. You know how dangerous it is out here. I was going to tell you. I just needed to make sure you were who you said you were. My father studied Rohan's face for a moment, then nodded slightly. It's all right. They're just kids. And Max, good work, he said, glancing at me with faint pride. I couldn't help but smile a little at the compliment, though I noticed Ava watching me quietly, her expression thoughtful. Anything else you're hiding? Matthew asked, still suspicious. And no, nothing, Rohan stammered. His sister hid behind the door, peeking out nervously, mostly at me with fear in her eyes. Something about the way she looked at me felt strange. I hope so, Matthew muttered, glancing down the hallway. My father sighed. We're all exhausted. Let's rest and talk about it tomorrow. Matthew nodded, and Rohan guided his sister back to their room. We took the one next door. Inside, my father flipped the light switch. To my surprise, it worked. The bulb flickered to life, bathing the room in a dull yellow glow. The room was small but decent. One bed, an old sofa, and a bathroom door slightly ajar. The air smelled faintly of burned cigarettes and cleaning chemicals, but it was heaven compared to the car. Ava, Max, you two take the bed. We'll manage with the sofa, my father said. I nodded, too tired to argue. There's running water, Matthew said, checking the bathroom. Go wash up, especially you, Max. I looked down at myself and grimaced. Dried blood all over my body, sweat, grime. I was a mess. No wonder that girl had looked so nervous when she saw me. Even her brother had been startled. Honey, there's really running water? Ava asked, her voice lighting up with sudden joy. Yes, Matthew smiled. Even hot water. Ava's eyes widened, and she almost laughed. This is wonderful, truly wonderful. I can finally take a bath. Her smile was contagious. In this world, something as simple as running water felt like a miracle. Then she turned to me, still smiling. Little Max, you go first. You need it more than I do. I wanted to argue, but she was right. As I stepped toward the bathroom, Ava's tone suddenly changed, sharp, commanding. Wait. I turned back. Is there a problem, Mom? She extended her hand. Hand it over. I frowned, not understanding at first. Hand what over? The gun, she said firmly. It's not safe for a child to have it. Her voice left no room for argument. Reluctantly, I handed the pistol to her. Good, she said softly, passing it to Matthew. Now you can go. I nodded and stepped inside the bathroom. The sound of rushing water filled the air, and for the first time, I truly appreciated the warmth of the shower. I felt clean again, human again. By the time I came out, Ava was ready to go in next. Seeing me emerge, she hurried inside, humming softly to herself. "Max, put these on," my father said, tossing me a t-shirt and a pair of pants they'd found. I caught them, blinking. Is there a room where I can change?" "What are you talking about?" my father said, raising a brow. "It's the middle of the night, and there's barely room for us to sleep, and now you want a separate place just to change? Just do it here." My face burned. How was I supposed to do that with two grown men watching? Matthew chuckled. Our little Max is embarrassed. "Don't be. I used to change your diapers, kid. There's nothing I haven't seen." They both laughed while I stood frozen and mortified. Finally, my father took a pity. All right, we'll turn around. Just be quick." They faced the corner, still chuckling, while I hurriedly pulled on the clean clothes. My face felt like it was on fire. As I finished, I heard them still laughing quietly to themselves. This was very embarrassing. But after everything we'd been through tonight, if a little embarrassment on my part could make them laugh, then it was worth the price. Exhausted, I fell asleep the moment I hit the bed. It was so comfortable that I didn't even notice when I drifted off. Max, wake up, honey." I felt someone shaking my shoulder. My eyes fluttered open, squinting against the sunlight spilling through the thin curtains. "Are you okay, honey?" Ava asked, worry etched across her face. "I'm okay, Mom. Why are you asking?" I mumbled, still groggy. "You were mumbling in your sleep and sweating a lot," she said gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. "I was afraid you were having a nightmare." I looked down, my hands were damp with sweat. The dream was still fresh in my mind, Henry Moore's head exploding before my eyes. I remembered every detail, but strangely, I didn't feel sick or horrified anymore. Maybe it was because of Agent 47's body, suppressing my emotions, or maybe I was just getting used to it. Whatever the reason, I felt strong. My body was light, my senses sharper than ever. I could hear faint footsteps down the hall, the creak of old wood, even the rustle of leaves outside. I felt almost superhuman. My body was fully transformed into Agent 47. I looked back at Ava, who was still watching me with concern, and I couldn't help but smile. "I'm okay, Mom," I said softly, sitting up in bed. She smiled in return, though a hint of worry lingered in her eyes. "Are you hungry? That boy, Rohan, he gave us plenty. He's a kind boy." She pulled a can from her backpack. I was about to refuse, remembering how careful we needed to be with our supplies, but my stomach betrayed me with a loud growl. Ava chuckled softly. "It's all right. He gave us enough to share." She handed me a can of corn. I nodded gratefully and began eating. The simple, bland food tasted better than anything I'd had in days. As I ate, Ava reached out and gently touched my face, watching me with a soft, loving smile. Her eyes were warm, full of relief that I was safe. Her gaze lingered a little too long, and I felt my cheeks heat up. "Mom, you're making me embarrassed," I mumbled, my mouth half full. She laughed quietly and pulled her hand away. All right, she said with a smile. "I'll let you eat in peace." When she left the bathroom, the room suddenly felt emptier, quieter. The warmth she carried with her seemed to fade from the air. I laughed under my breath. I'm acting like a clingy baby, I thought. My Uncle Matthew was still asleep on the sofa. He and my father had been taking turns standing guard through the night. My father sat nearby, rubbing his forehead. His face was still swollen, though not as badly as before. He looked exhausted. "Dad, are you okay?" I asked, noticing his discomfort. "If it hurts that much, maybe you should take the pain medicine Mom mentioned." He glanced at me, eyes softening with warmth. "Don't worry, Max. I'm fine. It's just a headache, probably for not wearing my glasses. I left them at the house, and now my head's killing me." I nodded, still concerned, but didn't press him further. The room smelled faintly of burnt cigarettes and old furniture. After sitting for a while, I decided to get some fresh air. As I stepped outside, my father's voice came from behind me. "Don't go far. Stay within the motel grounds." "Okay, Dad, I call back. I'll keep that in mind." The morning sun bathed the cracked parking lot in gold. The motel was surrounded by thick forest, and beyond it, only a few scattered houses stood in the distance. It was eerily quiet, except for the faint chirping of birds. I wandered down the hallway, passing rows of broken-down rooms with shattered doors and cracked windows. Then my eyes caught on the algae-covered swimming pool outside, its surface dark and murky under the pale morning light. That's when I heard voices coming from a room where Rohan and his sister were staying. Curious, I moved closer and pressed my ear gently against the door. Their voices were hushed, speaking in a language I didn't recognize. But one word stood out: walkie-talkie. My pulse quickened. What were they discussing? Were they contacting someone? Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching. I straightened immediately, pretending I hadn't been eavesdropping. My heartbeat pounded in my chest, nerves tightening inside me. I could only hope they hadn't realized I'd been listening. The door opened, and Rohan stepped out. He froze for a moment when he saw me so close, then forced a nervous smile. "Oh, hey, kid. Good morning. Sleep well?" I smiled back. "Yeah, I did." Behind him, I caught a glimpse of his sister, Anika. She was sitting on the floor, playing quietly with a small, broken doll. Something about the scene felt off. Noticing my glance, Rohan quickly shifted, closing the door behind him with his foot. "Sorry about that. My sister doesn't like people looking at her. She's very shy." He gave a quick, awkward smile. "You don't have to apologize," I said, trying to ease the tension. "I understand." He nodded quickly, then looked around as if searching for something. "Hey, did you happen to see a walkie-talkie anywhere?" "My sister, she lost it. If you find it around here, could you let me know?" "Sure," I said. "If I find it, I'll tell you." "Thanks," he replied, relief flashing across his face before he hurried down the stairs. I watched him go, the uneasy feeling in my chest growing stronger. Something about those two didn't feel right. I went back inside our room and found Uncle Matthew and my father talking quietly. Their voices were low but serious. "John," Matthew said, his brow furrowed, "we need to think about where we go from here. You know this area better than any of us. Do you have somewhere in mind? Someplace safe?" My father rubbed his temples, clearly exhausted. "Matthew, I don't know," he said finally. "There are a few places that might be safe, but they could be just as dangerous. I don't even know what to think anymore. Just give me a moment." He leaned back, massaging his forehead. Then his eyes caught mine, and his expression softened into a small smile. "Do you like the place, Max?" he asked. I stepped closer and lowered my voice. "Dad, this place feels weird if I'm being honest." He smiled faintly, trying to reassure me. "It's normal to feel that way. Everything's uncertain right now. The people, the places. Give it time, son. You'll get used to it." Before I could answer, Matthew crossed his arms and spoke up again. "Brother, even I feel something's off. That boy lied to us about being alone. And then suddenly we find his sister? Doesn't that strike you as strange? And do you remember hearing her giggling in the middle of the night?" My father sighed, his patience thinning. "You're both worrying too much. I know those siblings. I met them several times on business trips before all this started. They're good kids. As for the giggling, Anika is autistic. Don't read too much into it." Hearing that, both Matthew and I relaxed a little, though the unease in my chest didn't fade entirely. Matthew frowned, still deep in thought. "All right, but there's something else that doesn't sit right with me. How do they have so much canned food, enough to hand out like it's nothing? And why does this place still have power? Running water, working lights. The whole grid's been dead for weeks. It's too perfect, John. You knew them before the outbreak, sure, but you also know better than anyone what people turn into when the world goes to hell." My father hesitated, and for the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. He didn't have an answer. "You're right," he said finally, standing up. "That is suspicious." He straightened his jacket and glanced toward the door. "Let's go talk to Rowan. Maybe he can explain what's really going on here." Matthew nodded, and the three of us stepped out together, heading down the hallway toward the siblings' room, unaware of just how many secrets that motel might be hiding. John knocked on the door. There was no answer from inside. He frowned and peered through the dusty window. "I only see his sister playing," he said quietly. "Maybe he's in the bathroom." Then I remembered what Rohan had told me earlier. "Dad, I don't think he's in there. A few minutes ago, he went downstairs to look for the walkie-talkie his sister lost." John nodded, and the three of us started downstairs. Before I followed, I glanced again through the window. Anika sat in the corner, clutching her doll. Her face was pale and frightened, and she was staring straight at me. That look sent a chill down my spine. I stepped back and followed my father and uncle down the hall. We searched the lower floors, calling his name a few times, before finally spotting him by the algae-covered pool. Rohan crouched beside it, pulling a heavy tarp over the murky green water. As we approached, the smell hit us, foul and sickly, but we kept going. My father took the lead. He knew those siblings better than anyone. "Hey, Rohan," he called gently, not wanting to startle him. "Can we have a word?" Rohan froze. The tarp slipped from his hands and slapped the ground. His eyes darted between the three of us. Is there a problem, John?" My father shook his head. "No problem. We just want to ask you a few questions, if that's all right." Rohan hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay, what questions?" John and Matthew exchanged a quick look before John turned back to him. "First, how does this motel still have electricity and running water?" Rohan's gaze flicked to the building, then back to us. Reluctant but unable to resist my father's steady stare, he answered, "We have solar panels and a backup generator. For water, there's a well pump nearby. My parents installed it years ago. This place is remote, so connecting to city lines wasn't possible." My father exhaled and nodded, looking at Matthew and me as if to say, "See? Nothing strange." Matthew wasn't convinced. He folded his arms. "Then why do you have so much food? Enough to hand out like it's nothing." Rohan froze again. His eyes pinged from the pool to the motel and then to the ground. He was far too nervous. "Rohan," my father said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder, "you don't have to answer if it makes you uncomfortable. Everyone has their secrets. You've already helped us by sharing food." He looked at Matthew. "We shouldn't be ungrateful." Matthew stared for a long moment, then sighed. Before anyone could speak again, a sudden splash erupted from the pool. Dozens of rotting, pale hands burst from the murky water, clawing at the pool's edge. In an instant, 3 latched onto my father's legs. Another snagged Rohan by the ankle and began dragging him toward the water. "Dad!" I screamed, lunging forward. We reacted instinctively. I grabbed my father's arm and pulled with everything I had. The undead tried to drag him in, but I refused to let go. Uncle Matthew rushed to Rohan, yanking him back just as his foot slipped beneath the surface. The hands thrashed and clawed. It was as if the water itself had come alive. "Hold on," I shouted, heaving. With a violent jerk, my father's leg came free. We stumbled backward, crashing onto the cracked concrete. Rohan was still half submerged, screaming, "Aya! Help!" Matthew scrambled to his feet and grabbed Rohan's hand. My father and I joined him, and together we hauled Rohan out of the pool. The rotten hands waved, searched for something else to grab, and then, finding nothing, sank back beneath the dark green water as quickly as they had appeared. Silence fell over the courtyard, broken only by our ragged breathing. John and Matthew panted heavily. I felt strangely calm, even as my heart hammered. Luckily, none of us were bitten. Matthew's fury snapped. He drew his pistol and aimed it at Rohan's head. "What the hell was that, boy?" Rohan froze, trembling. His lips quivered and his eyes were wide with panic. "Please," he stammered, "don't shoot. I'll tell you everything. Please don't." "Speak." Matthew barked, finger tied on the trigger. "Matthew, stop!" my father shouted, stepping between them. "Can't you see he's terrified? Lower the gun. Let him talk." After a tense pause, Matthew lowered the weapon but kept glaring. John turned back to Rohan. "All right, tell us, why are there undead in that pool?" Rohan swallowed hard. Tears streamed down his cheeks. "When we heard about the outbreak, my parents stocked up boxes and boxes of canned food. We never thought it would spread this far, this fast. When it did, my parents died protecting us. I hid with my sister in the basement for weeks." He sniffed and wiped his face with his sleeve. I didn't know what else to do. They surrounded us. I lured them in one by one, just to keep my sister safe. I was trying to cover it so you wouldn't." He broke off, sobbing. Matthew's expression softened. The anger in his eyes gave way to pity. Guilt twisted in my chest. My father placed a steady hand on Rohan's shoulder. "It's all right, son. Don't cry. We're sorry for doubting you." Fear makes people suspicious. But next time, don't hide something like that. We all could have gotten hurt. Rohan nodded weakly, his face streaked with tears. I hesitated, then asked quietly, Rohan, why do you have a walkie-talkie? He looked up, confused for a moment, then answered softly, my sister gets scared when I leave her alone. I use it to comfort her, to talk when I'm not in the room. She lost hers yesterday. That eased the last of my doubts. He wasn't hiding anything sinister. He was protecting his sister. John exhaled. All right, Matthew, Max, help him look for that walkie-talkie. I'll finish covering the pool so no one else gets hurt. Uncle Matthew stayed below. I headed upstairs. I checked every room, even the ones with broken doors, drawers, under beds, inside closets, anywhere a radio might hide. When I reached our room, I expected to find Ava in the bathroom, but she wasn't there. Panic tightened my chest. Mom, where are you? I called, my voice trembling. No answer. My fear climbed with every passing second. I ran from the room and searched the first floor, calling her name. I peered over the railing to the courtyard below and froze. Rohan sat on the concrete near the motel office, close to the pool, hunched and trembling. For a moment, my mind filled with the worst possibility. Rohan and his sister were the only ones I still didn't fully trust. Had he done something to Ava? Anger flared. Rage blurred my vision. I vaulted the railing and hit the ground running toward him. Where's my mother? I barked. I grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall. He started coughing from the force. I forced my face close to his. You'd better fucking speak, or I'll rip your throat out. I hissed, my grip tightening. That moment, I meant every word. Max, what are you doing? Let him go, my father shouted from behind me. He grabbed my wrist and tried to pull me away, but I wouldn't budge. Max, let him go now. Why are you doing this? His voice rose with alarm. Mother's missing, I snarled, refusing to release my grip. I think he's involved. So he'd better speak, right now, or I'll kill him. My father kept pulling, desperation in his eyes. Calm yourself, boy. How's he supposed to talk if you're choking the life out of him? Rohan was gasping, his face flushing red. Realizing I was about to suffocate him, I let go. Speak, I barked. Rohan collapsed to his knees, coughing and clutching his chest. When he didn't answer, I lost control and punched him hard across the face. Speak, right now. Blood spattered my knuckles. Rohan's lips split, and he fell sideways, dazed. My father rushed in and shoved me back, shielding him. Calm yourself, he ordered, voice sharp and commanding. That tone, the one that demanded obedience, stopped me cold. I stood there, shaking, trying to tamp down the rage burning in my chest. If he didn't talk soon, I knew I might really kill him. Do you know anything about Ava? My father asked Rohan, who was still coughing. I don't know anything. Please, stop hurting me. Rohan wheezed, backing away on his hands. He tried to run, but before I could react, my father shouted, Stop! Look, your mother's over there. I spun. At the top of the stairs, Ava stood in the doorway of the siblings' room. Mom! I shouted and sprinted toward her. Relief and guilt slammed into me at once. Where were you? I called. I thought something happened. Ava looked shaken but unharmed. I heard Rohan's sister crying, she said softly. Concern and a trace of fear shaded her face. Seeing that fear twisted something inside me. She wasn't afraid of Rohan. She was afraid of me. Max, she said quietly but firmly, that boy isn't bad. You acted without understanding the full picture. You hit him. Her words cut deeper than any wound. I dropped my head. I'm sorry, I murmured. She crossed her arms. Say it to him. You made a mistake. Go apologize. Her tone left no room for argument. I nodded and went downstairs. As soon as I appeared, my father watched me with wary eyes. Rohan backed away the moment he saw me. Fear flickered across his face. I stopped a few steps away, keeping my distance. The apology lodged in my throat. Why was it so hard to say? Finally, I exhaled. Rohan, I'm sorry for punching you. I thought you'd done something, but I was wrong. I'm sorry. I bowed my head. Rohan glared through swollen eyes. You almost killed me, he whispered, still shaking. You bastard. Then he turned and walked away. My father watched me, for a long moment, then rested a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Look at me, Max." Reluctantly, I met his eyes. "As a man, you need to control your anger," he said quietly. "Blind rage only brings destruction to you and to everyone who cares about you. Learn that before it's too late." He patted my shoulder once and walked away. I realized I was getting more violent and less empathetic. I'd almost ripped Rohan's throat out. I wasn't afraid to kill. It was surreal. A dead body used to terrify me, and now, less than a day later, I was numb enough to do it without blinking. Maybe it was because I'm in Agent 47's body. He'd been engineered to be less empathetic. Drugs, training, brainwashing to create an emotionless killer. Still, he kept some humanity, love, hatred, which I find strangely fascinating. How someone can remain human after all that. In this Walking Dead world, less empathy can be an asset. Still, I felt guilty for hitting Rohan without thinking. I needed to control my anger before it destroyed me. Or maybe I didn't feel guilt at all. Maybe I only felt this because I saw my mother look at me with fear. That look tightened my chest. It hurt more than any wound. I was afraid she'd never look at me the same. The thought terrified me. Feelings are complicated. I didn't want to think about it anymore. With that, I went upstairs to talk with Mom. Ava sat on the sofa, lost in thought. I started to walk away so as not to disturb her, but she called me back. "Wait, Max. Come here. I want to talk to you." I walked slowly over and sat beside her with my head hanging low. My heart hammered with an inexplicable nervousness. "You remind me of John, fiercely protective of what he loves and cold to everyone else. I remember how you used to cry when an animal was hurt. I miss that Max. He was always kind, but sometimes I think it's better to be like John in this world." She paused, then added softly, searching my face, "Never lose your humanity, even if everyone else has." The silence that followed was heavier than her words. I didn't fully understand, but I nodded. She smiled. Warmth in her eyes calmed me. Then she handed me a small packet of pills. "These are painkillers. Give them to Rohan and apologize again." I nodded and left the room. Relief swelled. She was still the mother I'd always known. As I walked down the hallway, I heard voices below, my father and uncle. "John, what are you thinking? You're being unusually kind," Matthew said, watching him. John's voice was low. "This place has running water, electricity, food, everything we need. I thought maybe we should get rid of the siblings and take it all. But I know you won't agree. The smarter move is to earn their trust. If they accept us, great. If not, I'll deal with them." Matthew scoffed, heartless as ever. "Even with the world in chaos, you still try to exploit people." John put a hand on Matthew's shoulder. "If it comes down to choosing between us and those siblings, I'll pick us. Winter's coming. We need a safe place with food and water. This is perfect. What if something goes wrong? What's the plan if this motel becomes dangerous?" Matthew asked. John answered calmly. "If it falls apart, we head for the savannah. Find a boat and try to reach Canada or a remote island. Wait there until someone invents a vaccine. That's the fallback." They shifted to other topics. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. Hearing that from my father surprised me. I hadn't realized how far he might go. They stopped talking and began searching for a walkie-talkie. I knocked on the siblings' door. From the doorway came Rohan. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened. Fear still lingered there, flickering like a shadow that refused to fade. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice tight with unease. His gaze darted between my hands and my face, as if expecting another blow. "Here," I said quietly, holding out a small packet. "Painkillers. For your face." He hesitated, studying me for a few seconds before finally taking it. His fingers brushed mine briefly, cold, tense, wary. "And I'm sorry," I said after a moment, "for hitting you." He blinked, surprised by the apology, then gave a slow nod. "Okay," he said finally, voice small. "I forgive you, just don't do that again." Something loosened in my chest. Hearing those words, even in that shaky voice, felt like a weight lifting. "Thank you," I murmured, then turned to leave. When I stepped back into our room, Ava looked up from the sofa. "Did Rohan take the pain medicine, Max?" I nodded. That's wonderful news, she said with a soft smile. Seeing her smile made me smile too. I sat beside her, the tension in me easing a little. What were you two talking about? Came a voice from the doorway. It was Matthew, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. Oh, nothing much, Ava replied, brushing it off with practiced calm. Just talking about taking responsibility. Matthew nodded and sank into the chair across from us. You mean the part where Max hit Rohan because he thought Rohan had something to do with your disappearance? I looked down, shame burning in my cheeks. Yes, Ava said gently, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. It was just a mistake. Max already feels bad enough. Please don't make him feel worse. She turned to him again. By the way, did you find the walkie-talkie? Rohan's sister was crying alone earlier. I had to comfort her. And where's John? Matthew sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, we found it. John's returning it to the siblings now. Ava smiled. Thank God. Her relief softened her face, and seeing that, Matthew smiled too, a quiet, knowing kind of smile. They kept talking after that. Small things, unimportant things, but there was something beneath the surface. A playful tone in Matthew's voice. A faint laugh from Ava. It was subtle, but noticeable. I also couldn't ignore the faint smell of cigarette smoke clinging to the air, sharp and bitter. Before I could think too much about it, my father walked in. Hey, everyone, he said, cheerful as always. I talked with Rohan. He agreed to let us stay here as long as we need. Ava, could you make something for dinner tonight? Rohan and his sister will join us. Ava's face lit up instantly. Matthew's too, though for different reasons, I think. She looked especially happy, and I knew why. The motel had hot water, a luxury these days. I'll make dinner, she said, her voice bright with excitement. That's good to hear, John, Matthew added with a friendly nod. Then my father turned to me. Max, come with me. I'm going to check the area around the motel, make sure it's safe. We could talk a bit while we're out there. Father and son. His tone was light, but his eyes were intent. I hesitated for a moment, then nodded and stood. John, don't take Max outside. Ava blurted, grabbing my hand. Her voice trembled slightly. You know how dangerous it is out there. He's still just a kid. What if something happens to him? Ava, it's all right, John said softly, his tone calm but firm. Max isn't a baby anymore. He'll be 15 next month. He needs to learn how to survive. I'm just going to teach him the basics. Matthew, stop your brother, she said sharply. You know how dangerous it is. He didn't answer, just smiled that awkward, guilty smile. Were you part of this? She pressed. Matthew lowered his gaze, saying nothing. The silence answered for him. John stepped forward slightly. Ava, he said, his tone steady but serious. I understand that you're worried, but sooner or later, Max has to learn. You're right. The world out there is dangerous. That's exactly why I need to teach him how to defend himself. Don't worry. I'll be with him every step of the way. Ava hesitated, torn between fear and reason. Finally, she exhaled shakily and released my hand. Deep down, she knew he was right. She couldn't protect me forever. Watch over him, she said quietly. Don't let him out of your sight. And Max, listen to your father. Please. We both nodded, then stepped outside. The sunlight hit me first, warm but blinding. The sky was clear, and the forest beyond the motel swayed gently in the wind. Birds called from somewhere high in the trees. For a brief moment, it felt like the old world, peaceful, alive. But that illusion didn't last. As we made our way toward the dense woods, I spotted a lone undead staggering near the tree line. My father raised a hand, motioning for silence. We crouched low, moving carefully through the tall grass. Max, he whispered, there are a few things you need to understand. First, always aim for the head. Second, avoid hordes. In large numbers, they get smarter and deadlier. And most importantly, always kill anyone who's about to turn. They're the most dangerous of all. He pulled a handgun from his belt and handed it to me. The metal was cold and heavy. I know you've used a gun before, he said, but you need to remember safety. Keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire, and never aim at anything you don't intend to shoot. Got it. I nodded. I'd heard the same lessons before, from my grandfather during hunting trips. But hearing them now, in this world, from my father, it felt different. All right, he said quietly. Now, take aim and shoot that undead in the head. I steadied my breath, raised the gun, and fired. The shot cracked through the silence, echoing through the woods. The bullet struck true, straight through its skull. The walker dropped instantly. Good job, son, my father said, pride flashing in his eyes. You're natural. Now, let's move, before we attract more. But before he could finish, 3 more emerged from the trees. I didn't think, I just acted. 3 shots, 3 kills. Each one clean, precise, perfect through their skulls. Even I was surprised. The gun felt like an extension of my body, as if my hands already knew what to do. I silently thanked the angel for giving me this body. Agent 47's body was built to be the best at handling a gun. Precision, control, efficiency, all of it felt second nature. My father stared at me, speechless. You hit all 3, he said finally, his voice filled with disbelief. They were so far away, I could barely see them. With accuracy like that, you'd win a gold medal. I felt my cheeks flush, embarrassed by the compliment, but couldn't help smiling. Stop smiling, he said with a faint chuckle. Come on, and remember, don't fire near populated areas. You'll draw too many undead. Even here in the woods, the sound carries. Always think before you shoot. I will, Dad, I said, but a question lingered in my mind, burning. What did you mean when you said hordes become smarter? My dad's smile faded. Even I don't know why, he said, but when they gather in large groups, they start to act differently, coordinated, almost like a hive. They can climb walls, set traps, even ambush. Alone, they're nothing. But together, they're terrifying. A chill crawled up my spine. Hordes that could think, that was something worse than death itself. And when you said to kill anyone about to turn, why? He grew quiet, his expression darkening. Sometimes I forget you lost your memory, he said quietly. Newly turned people still retain most of their motor functions. They can run, climb, even use tools for a while. After about 24 hours, they slow down and become regular walkers. But in that first day, they're the deadliest. That's how the military base we were staying at fell apart. One newly turned person brought the whole thing down. His words hit me hard. I thought the undead were like in the TV shows, slow, predictable. But this was something else entirely. You're good with a gun, he said evenly. Just remember, survival doesn't care about mercy. Kill anyone who's a threat to you. There was a cold edge to his voice, but I understood. In this world, mercy could get you killed. I nodded silently, accepting the truth I already knew. Come on, my father said softly, breaking the silence. Let's get back before Ava gets angry. He started walking ahead. I followed slowly, the weight of everything he'd said pressing down on me like a storm cloud. We arrived back at the motel about half an hour later. As we reached the entrance, my father held out his hand. Give me the gun. I passed it over, and he slid it into his belt with the kind of ease that only comes from years of handling one. I turned toward the stairs, but before I could take a step, he added quietly, and before you go inside, knock on the door, okay? I blinked. What? He didn't explain. He just gave me that look, the one that meant trust me. So I nodded and headed up. Halfway to the room, I froze. The sounds reached me first. A muffled laugh, a breathless gasp, a soft, rhythmic thump against the wall. Ava, Matthew. Heat slammed into my face. My whole body locked with embarrassment. I spun around so fast, I almost slipped and hurried back down the stairs. When Dad saw my expression, he didn't even try to hide it. He burst out laughing. Chill out, huh, Max? Groaning, I covered my face and nodded. And suddenly everything made sense. Matthew flirting earlier, how he agreed to Dad's plan to take me outside. I understood way too much, way too fast. Well, Dad chuckled, wiping his eyes. It's normal. Husband and wife need their moments. I wish you'd warned me, I muttered. He rested a warm hand on my shoulder. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's human nature. But someday, when you're older and ready, be careful. If you're not ready for a child, use protection. And stop, I blurted, waving my hands as if that could erase the words. I don't need a reproduction lecture. He laughed harder at how red my face was. Well, eventually you will. And since schools are gone, if you ever have questions, you can ask me. I nodded, just to end the conversation. Trying to escape the awkwardness, I asked, Dad, why didn't you ever marry again? After Mom died, his smile vanished instantly. A heavy shadow crossed his face, the kind made of memories that still hurt to touch. Well, son, he said quietly, I gave your mother my heart, and when she died, it never came back. I didn't have anything left to give someone else. He tried to smile, but it trembled at the edges, pulled tight by pain that had never left him. Guilt tightened in my chest. I shouldn't have asked. To give him space, I wandered toward the edge of the motel grounds, and that's when I saw movement. 3 figures emerging from the trees. At first, I thought they were undead by the way they swayed, but then sunlight flashed across metal. An AK-47, a shotgun, a handgun shaking in the hands of someone barely 18. Fear punched through me. I ran. Dad, 3 people with guns are coming. What do we do? His eyes sharpened instantly. The gentle father vanished. Only the survivor remained. Calm down, he said, voice low and steady. Go upstairs. Warn Matthew and Ava. Hide. Watch. No one fires unless I give a signal. Understand? I nodded and sprinted upstairs. Thankfully, the world behind the door was silent this time. I knocked. Ava opened it, hair messy, cheeks flushed. Matthew sat on the sofa, pretending nothing had happened. No time to think about that. There are 3 armed men coming, I whispered. Dad said hide, watch, and wait for his signal. Their embarrassment vanished, replaced by sharp, alert tension. We crouched by the window. Suddenly the motel's thin, cracked walls felt like paper. Down below, Dad pressed himself behind the shattered doorway, patient, silent, coiled like a spring. The 3 men reached the motel. The smoker, older, rough, cruel, with dead eyes that said he'd crossed every line long ago. The middle one, one-eyed, silent, radiating danger. The youngest, barely a man, shaking with every step. They stopped at the base of the stairs. Then the smoker yelled, Rohan, get out here before I beat your Indian ass. His voice tore through the motel, sharp and ugly. Rohan appeared only when one of them moved to storm the stairs. His legs trembled. His face was drained of life. Finally, the smoker sneered. Didn't want to look up and see your ugly face. Get down here. Rohan obeyed, moving like someone pulled by invisible chains. How many times do we gotta shout? The man snapped. Rohan swallowed hard. P, please. I'll give you food, but don't ask for anything else. What the fuck are you talking about? The smoker barked, flicking his cigarette at him. We're not asking today. We're taking everything. All your food and your sister. Rohan froze. His breath hitched. Hopelessness washed over him. You promised. He whispered. You told me if I gave you what you wanted, you'd leave us alone. Please just leave us alone. His voice wasn't just afraid, it was broken. Like this wasn't the first time. Or the second. The men laughed, loud and cruel. Then the smoker turned to the youngest. Jack, you've never killed anyone, right? Jack's chin trembled. His hands shook around the gun. He didn't answer, but his silence screamed fear. Well, the smoker said, amused and vicious, now's your time. Kill this Indian shit. Jack's eyes widened with horror. He shook his head, breath coming too fast. He wasn't a killer, just a scared kid behind the wrong people. Motherfucker, you can't even do that, the smoker roared. He ripped the gun from Jack's hands. Just pull the trigger. Like this, he aimed at Rohan. Everything slowed. Rohan's eyes squeezed shut. Ava covered her mouth beside me. Matthew tensed, finger tightening on his trigger. And then, bang, the smoker's head exploded. He felt like a puppet with its strings cut. The man with the shotgun spun toward the noise. Bang! Matthew's shot hit his chest. He staggered. Bang! Dad finished him with a clean shot to the skull. The last one, Jack, didn't run. His legs buckled. He dropped to his knees, shaking violently, tears streaming, snot dripping, a dark stain spreading across his pants. P, please, don't shoot me. He begged, voice cracked wide open. My father stepped from cover, calm, steady, cold enough to freeze the air. Hands up, he said. Slowly, Jack lifted them, trembling so hard they nearly dropped. Dad's gaze shifted from Jack to Rohan, who looked seconds from collapsing, then back to the terrified boy. "Now," he said quietly, his voice like a blade, "someone tell me what the hell is going on here." Seeing that everything had settled, we all went downstairs. Rohan stood there silently, staring at the floor. We waited for him to speak. Only when he finally lifted his eyes and met my father's steady, unblinking gaze did he begin. "Those 3 bandits came 2 weeks ago asking for help," Rohan said, his voice trembling. "I gave them some food and water, but they found out I had a lot of canned supplies. They demanded everything. I begged them not to take it all, so they made me a deal. If I gave them 10 cans of food," and his lips quivered, tears spilling down his cheeks, "and my sister for one night, they said they'd leave us alone. I didn't want to agree, but I had no choice. I did what they told me." "What the fuck were you thinking?" Matthew snapped, disgust twisting his face. "Handing over your sister? My God." Even Ava gasped, covering her mouth. My father remained silent, watching Rohan with an unreadable expression. As for me, I felt sick and disgusted too. But at the same time, I was disturbingly calm. Even after hearing everything and seeing 2 dead bodies, the horror didn't hit me the way it should have. It felt like reading a terrible headline or watching a tragic story on the news. You feel shaken for a moment, and then the feeling fades. That's how it felt. And realizing that about myself was its own kind of unsettling. Rohan shook his head miserably. "I know what I did was horrible. I know, but they would have killed us both and taken everything. And even after I did what they asked, they came back a few days later demanding the same thing, despite promising they would leave us alone." His voice thinned, collapsing under the weight of what came next. I reluctantly agreed again, but after they took my sister a second time, she was never the same. She cried whenever a stranger came near her. She wouldn't sleep unless I held her. He swallowed hard. Seeing her like that, I refused to let them take her again. I told them they could take more food instead. He wiped his face with a shaking hand. They promised that if I gave them 15 cans a week, they'd leave us alone. But they lied. His jaw tightened, grief sharpening into rage. "They came back today to kill me and take everything." His eyes burned, wet with fury, including my sister. We all turned to look at Jack, still trembling on the ground. Disgust and anger twisted in my chest. I never imagined people could be this cruel, this ungrateful, feeding on the kindness of others only to destroy them later. But then my father's earlier words returned to me, how he'd calmly said he intended to get rid of the siblings and take over the motel if necessary. The thought hit me hard. I didn't know what to think anymore. What separated good people from bad ones? Where was the line? Who decided it? I knew my father had a good heart. I knew he would do anything to protect the people he loved. But even then, I couldn't fully understand. Not the world. Not other people. Not even him. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure if anyone could. Matthew stepped toward Jack and kicked him in the face, sending him trembling to the floor. "You fucking disgusting bastard," he shouted, kicking him again. Jack groaned in pain. "Matthew, stop. I still need to have a word with him," John said as he approached the wounded man and drew his gun. As soon as Jack saw the weapon, his breathing grew ragged. "Now, kid, I'm going to ask you something. Answer truthfully. If I hear even a hint of a lie, I'll blow your head off. Are we clear?" "Yes," Jack whispered. "Good. Then tell me, why didn't you kill Rohan and take over this motel sooner? Why wait until now?" Jack hesitated, glancing around the room, but the pressure forced the truth out. "We didn't want to share food with our group," he said. "We wanted this place for ourselves, somewhere we could come whenever we wanted for food and whatever. But our camp was attacked by a horde of undead. We barely escaped and lost all our supplies. Everyone was starving except us. When our leader noticed we weren't hungry, he realized we were hiding food. He threatened to kill us if we didn't hand it over. That's why we're here, and we plan to give the girl to him as forgiveness." John's expression hardened. "Where was your camp when the horde attacked? How many people are in your group, and where are they now?" he demanded, tightening his grip on the gun. Terrified, Jack raised his hands. "I'll tell you, please don't shoot." "Then you'd better fucking tell me. Quickly." There were 15 of us," Jack blurted. "Our original camp was 4 miles from here. The new one is a mile north of this motel." John's eyes turned cold. Did you partake in molesting his sister? Jack froze. Tears streamed down his face. He began sobbing uncontrollably, even wetting himself as he sat in terrified silence. That silence said everything. Bang! Bang! John shot him twice in the head. Rage tightened every muscle in his face. Ava tried to cover my eyes, but I could still see through the gaps between her fingers. "You fucking piece of human shit," my father muttered, kicking Jack's lifeless body. Seeing this, I understood something clearly. What separates humans from monsters are the boundaries they set for themselves. Humans honor those boundaries. Monsters abandon them long ago. My father can be cruel, even heartless, but he has lines he will never cross. That's what makes him human, unlike those who discarded every boundary and became something else entirely. Moments later, John's eyes widened with fresh worry. He turned sharply toward us. "All of you, grab the guns on the floor and take everything you need. We're moving out of this motel right now." "Why? You said this place was safe," Ava said. John shook his head. "Someone must have been watching the three of them to make sure they didn't run. We killed all three. Whoever was watching has probably already gone to inform their group. We need to leave before they arrive." Matthew frowned. "But how can you be sure someone was following them?" "It's better to be safe than sorry," John said sharply. "Do what I told you, and let's go. There's a horde of undead nearby. We can't stay here. It's not safe anymore." He pointed at Rohan. "Stop crying. Go get your sister and bring her downstairs. We're leaving." We moved immediately. I grabbed a pistol, Ava a shotgun, Rohan the AK-47. We hurried upstairs while Matthew and John went to the basement to gather as much food as they could. Up in the room, I yanked a backpack open and began shoving cans and bottles inside with frantic, shaking hands. Every second felt too long. Every sound felt too loud. My chest was tight, like I was already drowning before anything even happened. Then I rushed back into the hallway. Rohan was trying to get his sister, Anika, to move, but she wouldn't budge. The moment he tugged her arm, she collapsed into hysterical sobs. Panic twisted across his face. He looked helpless, like a man sinking in deep water with no air left. Ava moved without hesitation. She knelt beside the trembling girl and wrapped her in gentle arms. Hey, sweet girl," she whispered, brushing Anika's hair with steady, soothing strokes. "It's okay. No one will hurt you. You're safe. And if you stop crying, I'll give you candy. Remember last time?" Anika's sobs faltered. Her large, watery eyes lifted to Ava's face. "Are you really telling the truth, big sister?" she whispered. Ava smiled, a tired, soft, impossibly warm smile. "Yes," she murmured. "I promise. I've never lied to you, right? So listen to your brother. Be a good girl, and I'll give you lots of candy." Something in Anika loosened. She wiped her tears, nodded, and held onto Ava's sleeve like it was the only solid thing left in the world. For a brief, fragile moment, hope flickered in her eyes. Bang! The gunshot cracked through the hallway like the world itself split in half. Before thought could form, bullets ripped upward from below, splintering wood, shredding walls, showering us in dust and broken plaster. The entire motel trembled beneath the barrage. Downstairs, John and Matthew were already in a gunfight, firing back from behind half-destroyed walls. Outside, at least 15 bandits in the cars took positions around the motel, blasting away without pause. I turned back. Anika stared up at me. Her mouth opened, but only blood came out. Thick, bubbling, choking. She'd been shot in the chest. She trembled, confused, hurt in a way no innocent girl should ever be. Then I saw Ava. Her shoulder was torn open, blood spilling between her fingers as she tried to pinch the wound shut. Her eyes were wide, shock, pain, disbelief. Something fragile inside me snapped. Rohan screamed and fired blindly down the stairs. I grabbed both girls and dragged them into the room, firing back through the doorway. I hit one bandit, but there were too many left. Bullets peppered the walls, forcing me low. Then another shot tore into Rohan's stomach. He collapsed, howling in agony, blood soaking through his fingers. Anika was dying. Her breaths weren't breaths anymore, just shallow, panicked gasps. Faster, weaker, bubbling with blood. She wasn't going to make it. Ava tried to stop the bleeding, pressing her thumb into the wound, hand slick with red, but it did nothing. My hand moved on instinct. I raised my pistol toward the girl's head. Her eyes widened, pure, heartbreaking terror. Please, you don't hurt me. She whimpered, clinging to Ava, shaking violently. My chest caved in. My stomach curled into something sick. I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this. My hand trembled so hard I almost dropped the gun. Don't you fucking kill my sister. Rohan screamed, delirious with pain, grief, denial. She's fine. She's fine. Don't. I couldn't think. My mind split in opposite directions, tearing me apart. Max, Ava snapped. Her voice shook, but her will didn't. Lower your gun. Now. I didn't move. Couldn't move. Not until her eyes met mine. Steady, commanding, pleading. I began to lower the gun. Anika screamed. Ah. Her jaws clamped into Ava's shoulder. Hard. Deep. No. MOM. I screamed. Anika convulsed violently. Her spine cracked into impossible angles. Her arms curled inward. Her small face twisted. Feral, monstrous, but still beneath it, heartbreakingly hers. Then she lunged at me. I shoved her away. She crashed into the wall. I raised my gun again. My heart tore itself apart. My finger hesitated. God, I hated myself for hesitating. She was just a poor girl. She'd already suffered enough. But she lunged again. I fired. The bullet ripped through her skull. She collapsed instantly, twitching once before going still. No, you bastard. You fucking bastard. You killed my sister. Rohan screamed. His grief swallowed him whole, twisting his face into something unrecognizable. He lifted his AK-47 at me. He wasn't Rohan anymore, just pain wearing his face. I fired before thinking. He dropped instantly. My pistol slipped out of my shaking hand and hit the floor with a heavy, echoing thud. I didn't want to kill any of them. God, I didn't want to. Everything inside me hollowed out. I crawled to Ava and lifted her head into my lap. Blood soaked her shirt. A savage bite mark tore across her shoulder. Her breathing was slow, too slow. My throat closed. Tears blurred everything. Mom, please. My voice cracked apart. Please don't leave me. I've lost too much. Please stay. Please don't go. I held her hand, cold, trembling. Max, honey, don't cry, she whispered, breath fading. You look so cute when you laugh. That shattered me. Her trembling fingers rose to touch my cheek. The world around me went cold and quiet. Gunpowder in the air. Blood smeared across every surface, the floor, the walls, the ceiling. I wondered if this was hell, if I was dead and didn't know it. After a long silence, one that felt like an entire lifetime, Ava spoke again, voice thin and trembling. Live happily, my love. I wish. She swallowed, fighting the pain. I wish I could stay longer. Her voice, her eyes, her warmth fading second by second. It felt like someone was tearing my heart out with their bare hands. Max, she breathed. Sweetheart, look at me. I forced my head up. Tears distorted everything. Ava glanced at the gun on the floor. Please, Mom, I begged. Don't leave me. She brushed my head, her fingers shaking uncontrollably. Eat properly. Take care of yourself, she whispered. Her eyes, soft and full of love, never left mine. Then she reached for the gun. No, Mom, please, don't do this, please. I grabbed her arm desperately. She pulled me close and kissed the top of my head. Live without regret, Max. She murmured, voice barely audible. And remember, laugh. Always laugh. I'll watch over you from heaven. By my cute son. A single tear slid onto my shoulder. Bang. The gunshot erupted beside my ear. Ava's body went limp in my arms. I froze. Something inside me ruptured, raw, violent. A scream tore out of me, animalistic, broken. I pressed my face in her hair and screamed into the world that kept taking everything from me. Outside, the motel exploded in gunfire, shouting, shattering glass. But all I heard was my own breathing. Fast, uneven, wrong, and the echo of the gunshot that stole her away. Mom, Mom, please don't leave. My voice cracked apart. It didn't sound like mine. It sounded broken. I shook her gently, then harder and harder. Mom, wake up, please wake up. She didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't return. Please, God, don't do this to me. My voice trembled violently. Please, just don't take my mother away. But no answer came. No answer ever came. My breath stuttered. My hands went numb. The world tilted sideways. My jaw locked. My fingers twitched uncontrollably. My vision shook like the world was vibrating around me. Something dark and suffocating rose up from deep inside. And then, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. A laugh ripped out of me. Wild, twisted, inhuman. I laughed harder and harder because the pain was too much to cry, too much to breathe, too much to survive. What a joke. What a cruel, miserable joke life was. Everyone I ever cared about, I always lost them. Always. If I hadn't hesitated, if I had killed Anika sooner, if I had been ruthless, Ava might still be alive. My mother. The world felt distant, muted, as if I'd been shoved underwater. I didn't know how long I'd been holding my mother's lifeless body. Her blonde hair was still tangled in my fingers, as though she refused to let me go. Her skin, once warm, was cold now, cold enough to seep into me and hollow out whatever was left inside. I couldn't remember when the tears had stopped, or when the laughter, the fractured, hysterical laughter, had begun spilling out of me. At some point, they had blended together. Crying and laughing felt the same now, pain wearing different masks. All I truly knew was that something inside me had shattered beyond repair, and I had no idea how to put myself back together. Maybe I shouldn't have let myself get so close to this family. Maybe then it wouldn't hurt this much. I hadn't even realized how quickly they had become important, how desperately I'd clung to them after my grandfather died. Maybe I'd been lonely. Maybe I still was. All I knew was that I hated this feeling of losing someone I loved. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. Or maybe that was a lie. I couldn't tell anymore. The only truth that remained was simple and cruel. I had lost something I should never have lost. The room reeked of smoke, blood, and gunpowder. Fire crackled below us, smoke creeping through the vents, but I couldn't bring myself to care. A small part of me wished the whole motel would burn down, with me in it. Max! A voice cut through the ringing in my ears. Footsteps stumbled across splintered boards. Someone entered the room behind me. Max, oh God! It was my father. I didn't look at him. Didn't move. My throat released strange, broken sounds, something between laughter and choking sobs. His boots creaked as he came closer. He knelt beside me and turned me toward him. I finally saw his expression. Fear, panic, disbelief, but none of it reached me. Max, come on. We need to go. The horde is coming. I didn't answer. Whatever he saw in my eyes made him flinch. It felt like something essential had been cut out of me and left on the floor beside her. Then his hand cracked across my cheek. Max! I said it's time to go. The slap pierced the fog in my mind. I blinked. The room swayed. Flames licked the walls, growing taller, hungrier. The motel was burning. I couldn't die here. She wouldn't want that. I gently laid Ava on the floor, smoothing her hair one final time. I wasn't ready to let her go, but I had to. Then I stood. A pistol lay on the ground, as if waiting for me. My fingers closed around it. The metal felt warm, too warm. John said something behind me, his voice trembling, but I didn't hear it. Or maybe I didn't want to. He grabbed my arm and dragged me out into the burning hallway. Half the motel was already engulfed in flames. Ahead, a horde of undead pushed toward the building. 9 bandits sped away in a jeep. I lifted my gun, fired. 3 tires exploded. The jeep spun out and slammed into a tree. Without thinking, I jumped from the 2nd floor and bolted toward the wreck. I didn't hear my father shouting behind me. Max, what are you doing? Get in the car. Uncle Matthew was behind the wheel, his injured arm clutched to his chest. His eyes widened when he saw me. Max, get in. Where is everybody? But I couldn't answer. I just kept running. The bandits crawled from the wreck, dazed, bleeding. When they saw me coming, they reached for their guns. I fired first, knocking their weapons from their hands. I grabbed the closest man by the throat and slammed him to the pavement. His skull burst open across the concrete. He didn't get up. Two more reached for their weapons. I shot them before they could lift their arms. Their heads snapped back, blood spraying across the grass. Another tried to run. My gun clicked empty. I hurled the pistol. The metal smashed into his temple with a sickening crunch, lodging into the bone. He collapsed instantly. 2 bandits had died in the crash. 3 were still alive, barely. I dragged them out of the jeep, ignoring their pleas. Please don't kill us. Let us go," one begged. And hearing him beg, I smiled. I punched him so hard his jaw shattered. But it wasn't enough. I hit him again, and again, until his face caved in, just pulp and bone. A broken laugh escaped me. Hearing it made my stomach turn. My hands dripped with blood, warm and disgusting. The 2 remaining bandits trembled violently, wetting themselves when they saw me turn toward them. I wanted to rip their throats out with my bare hands. But the roar of the undead reminded me I didn't have time. I grabbed a shotgun from the ground and left them there, screaming. They would serve as bait. They would buy us time. I turned toward the car. My father and Matthew were waiting, faces twisted with panic. "Max, get in the CAR," my father yelled. I glanced over my shoulder. The wounded bandits were already being dragged into the swarm, screaming. But the undead didn't stop. They kept coming, from every direction. The car had no way out. My father kept yelling. But I knew the truth. If we stayed together, we'd all die. I couldn't lose any more family. So I turned and ran the opposite way, arms waving, shouting, anything to draw the horde toward me. "Max, what are you doing? Get back here." I fired into the sky. The horde turned toward me. Most of it. I ran, firing until the shotgun clicked empty. Then I threw it aside and sprinted, a tidal wave of undead roaring behind me. It was enough. Behind me, I heard the engine roar to life. My father and Matthew sped away through the gap I'd created. I reached the forest and plunged into the trees. Branches tore at my arms and legs as I ran. Only when the undead groans faded did I stop. They were gone. But now, I am alone again. Fucking shit, where the hell am I? I yelled into the empty forest as I kept running. The woods were silent except for a few birds chirping and leaves rustling overhead. The air smelled earthy and woody, sweet and slightly spicy. Autumn leaves drifted down in slow spirals. It was getting colder. Winter was coming. I've been wandering for maybe 2 weeks. I couldn't even call it being lost, because to be lost, you need to know where you started. I had no idea where I was. I just kept moving forward. I wished I had a map, anything to point me in the right direction. I was supposed to be heading toward Savannah. My father said he would go there if the motel wasn't safe. I prayed he hadn't left me behind. I couldn't go back to look for him. The motel had burned down, and the horde was still there. Savannah was the only place I knew to look. But the problem was simple. I didn't know where Savannah was. I didn't even know what direction it was in. Hell, I didn't even know where I was. Half the time it felt like I was running in circles. The only thing keeping me alive was this body of Agent 47. I could run for hours without feeling tired. The only downside was how quickly I became hungry. But even that wasn't a real problem. I caught small animals, rabbits, squirrels, whatever I could find. All I needed was a rock. Sometimes I amazed even myself with how strong I was. I could throw a stone with deadly precision and hit an animal hundreds of feet away. My senses were almost unnaturally sharp. If I focused long enough, I could pinpoint every living creature within a 50-foot radius, even without seeing them. It felt like having night vision mixed with a radar system. It kept me alive. I wasn't starving. I wasn't injured. That was the good news. But the bad news? The nightmares. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw blood. I saw everything I didn't want to remember. Maybe it was trauma. Maybe guilt. Maybe both. Even after washing my clothes in the river, I swore I could still smell blood. Maybe it was my imagination, or maybe it wasn't. Sometimes I looked down and thought I saw stains on my hands and clothes. Sometimes they vanished. I was starting to think the forest was getting into my head. Before I completely lost my mind, I kept running. I've been running for hours, maybe days. My shoes were worn down to almost nothing. My shirt and pants were torn where branches had ripped them open. And yet I was still alive. Even though everyone I loved was gone, I was still here. This body stayed resilient, mentally and physically. If I were still in my original body, I don't know what state I would be in. I'm not sure I want to know. So I kept moving. Straight ahead. Forward. The only direction that made sense. I've been doing it for nearly 20 hours. Even at night, when a few undead drifted between the trees, they were easy to kill. Most of them stayed near populated areas, not the middle of the forest. Finally, after endless miles of trees, I saw something. A road. Finally, something other than trees. I muttered, relief spilling through me. I had made it out of the goddamn forest. All I needed to do now was wait. Wait for a car, a truck, anything that might pass by, so I could finally ask where Savannah was. Maybe even get help. So I camped nearby. I didn't know how to build a proper shelter, so I climbed a tree and slept on the branches high above the undead and whatever else wandered the woods. Luckily for me, even on the coldest nights, I didn't freeze. I barely felt cold at all. It was like wearing a thick winter coat. Honestly, it was amazing. I silently thanked the angel again. Yeah, I'd done 100 times, but this body was perfect for survival. 3 days passed. 3 days of waiting. 3 days of staring down an empty road. No cars. No people. Not even undead. Nothing. Frustration gnawed at me. I was about to give up and start walking when I heard it. A faint rumble in the distance. A car. I jumped down from the tree, landing softly on the pavement. Then I stepped into the middle of the road and waited. I didn't trust whoever was coming. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I slipped a few rocks into my pocket, small and harmless to anyone else, but lethal in my hands. With my strength and accuracy, one flick of my wrist could crack a skull. Physically, I was stronger, faster, and sharper than almost anyone alive. If they showed even the slightest hint of being a threat, I wouldn't hesitate to kill them. I was done with hesitation. Hesitation had given me nothing but pain. And pain, yeah, I'd had enough of that. Nobody likes it, except for a few twisted people. But there are always exceptions. So yes, stones mattered. I waited patiently, a hint of a smile pulling at my face. Eventually, a car appeared, an old Honda. Not my favorite brand, but right now it looked like salvation. I raised my hand to signal the driver to stop. As the vehicle slowed, I saw only one person inside. No passenger. Even from a distance, I could see the man's expression, worried and suspicious, as he eased the car to a stop just a few feet in front of me. The engine hummed softly. The forest went still, and the man stared at me like I might be the last living soul or the next threat. I looked at the man in the car. He was maybe in his mid-40s with a long beard, and he kept glancing around me cautiously. I understood why anyone would be suspicious after seeing a 14-year-old boy standing alone in the middle of the road with clothes nearly torn to shreds. Maybe he thought it was an ambush, a trap. After making sure no one else was hiding in the trees, he slowly lowered his window. "What are you doing out here, kid?" I kept smiling and answered without hesitation. "Hello, mister. I'm lost. I need to go to Savannah. Do you know the way?" I asked politely, not wanting to make him more defensive. He studied me for a moment. Once he realized I really was alone, he stepped out of the car. His eyes softened a little, still cautious, but less tense. "Oh, so you're lost? Do you have anybody with you?" he asked, scanning the trees again. "No, sir. I got separated from my dad and uncle. I need to find them in Savannah. Can you help me?" I said, keeping my voice small and worried. "What happened? How did you get separated from your family?" he asked, coming closer. "Well, we were attacked by a bunch of bandits. While we were fighting, a horde of undead came in. We all had to run. In the chaos, I got separated. I need to go to Savannah," I explained. He kept checking the road. "I'm sorry to hear that, kid. I'm also looking for my family. I even have a boy your age. How old are you?" I hesitated. It felt personal, but I answered anyway. "I'm 14. My dad said I'll be 15 in a few days." "Sir, can you tell me the direction to Savannah?" He stepped closer, close enough to reach me with his hand. "Of course I'll help you. I'll even take you there. In my car," he said with a smile. I didn't like that smile. Too wide, too eager. So I stayed exactly where I stood and replied, "No, sir. I just need the direction to Savannah. I don't want to bother you." His smile faltered. "Kid, it's dangerous here," the bearded man said, looking me over. "Get in the car. I'll take you to Savannah. If you stay here, you'll die. Starvation, monsters, anything." His eyes sharpened with certainty. Then something darker crept in. His friendly expression vanished. Hunger, maybe lust, took its place. His whole demeanor had changed the moment I refused. No, it had changed earlier when he realized I was alone. I also noticed the gun tucked into his pocket. I stayed calm. His gaze locked onto me like a wolf sizing up prey. I noticed it. I pretended not to. He reached out and touched my shoulder lightly. I recoiled internally. It didn't feel like the touch of a father or an uncle or anyone safe. "Adults know better," he murmured, rubbing my shoulder. "You're alone here. You need my help. Trust me, I'm not a bad person. Now get in the car. I'll take you to your family." Then he grabbed my arm and tried to pull me toward the car. He froze, because I didn't move. Not an inch. He tugged harder, using both hands. I still didn't budge. His eyes widened in shock. Right before I kicked him in the kneecap, it snapped with a sickening crack. His leg bent almost 90 degrees, and he collapsed on the road, screaming as he clutched it. He reached for the gun in his pocket, but before he could aim, I kicked his hand. Bones crunched. The gun spun into the forest. His scream doubled as he crawled away, tears streaming down his face like a terrified animal dragged to slaughter. "Please, leave me alone," he sobbed. I just wanted to help you." I ignored him. I walked over, picked up the fallen gun, and checked the magazine. 6 bullets. That made me smile. I never thought I would meet a predator in my life, and luckily, I wasn't a child or a stupid teenager. When the world is in chaos, people show their true color very easily. I pointed the gun at him as he dragged himself farther away. He froze, shaking. "Please, I have a family, don't shoot," he begged. His fear only made my smile wider. "Tell me where Savannah is, and I won't kill you," I said. He hesitated, clutching his shattered hand, his ruined leg useless behind him. I'll tell you. Just promise you won't kill me." One hand broken. One leg snapped. He couldn't run. He couldn't fight. All he had left was pleading. "Fine," I said. "I promise I won't kill you. Now talk." He swallowed. "Take this road straight until you reach the main highway, then turn right. If you follow it long enough, you'll reach Savannah." I nodded and tucked the gun behind my waistband. "Sorry," I said. He blinked, confused and terrified. I pulled 2 rocks from my pocket and threw them. Both hit. Both eyes burst. Blood streamed from his empty sockets as he screamed like a wounded animal. "For this, I'm sorry," I said, smiling. "I just don't like your eyes." I climbed into the car. "You little bastard. You lied," he yelled, thrashing in the blood-soaked dirt. As I started the engine, he began begging. Please, kill me." He knew he wouldn't survive. Broken leg, crushed hand, blind alone. Pain would finish him slowly. His begging only made me laugh. Ha ha ha. His expressions were hilarious. "Sorry," I said. "I promised I wouldn't kill you. So my answer is no. Bye." I drove off, leaving him screaming and cursing behind me. I would never show mercy to anyone who was a threat. Letting them live only made me suffer. I was done with suffering. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to smile more often. Mother said I looked cute when I smiled. Equals. I had been driving along the highway for almost 2 hours. The road was mostly empty, with a few broken-down cars scattered here and there. A handful of undead wandered lazily near the edges. The car smelled like a rotting corpse, but I kept driving. The sun was high now, but the cold autumn wind felt refreshing. My driving skills weren't great. In my old life, I had failed the test twice. I hated traffic rules, but I could manage. I could drive tractors, excavators, and anything on a farm. I learned early, helping my grandfather. Suddenly, the car sputtered and rolled to a stop. I glanced at the dashboard. Empty. No gas. "Great," I muttered. There was nothing I could do. I prepared to walk. Before stepping out, I searched the car thoroughly. Trash was piled everywhere, making it annoying to find anything useful. Behind the passenger seat, I found a double-edged sword, the kind you see in medieval movies. I also found canned food and bottled water stuffed inside a backpack. Seeing all of it made me smile. When something bad happens, something good follows. Life's funny, I said, grabbing the backpack and the sword. Before leaving, I checked the glove box. Inside was a folded map. Well, look at that. My luck isn't running out. Must be my lucky day, I said, unfolding it. I found my location, Highway 16, near Adrian. According to the map, I still had many miles before reaching Savannah. Going through the woods would probably be faster. Major roads near the city would be clogged, traffic jams, abandoned cars, hordes of undead. I didn't want to deal with any of that. And since the car was useless now, I had no choice. I tied the sword to my hip using the scabbard and rope, slung the backpack over my shoulders, and ran into the woods. Barely any undead appeared, which was a good sign. I kept going, straight toward Savannah. After running for more than 3 hours, I suddenly stopped. A gunshot echoed nearby. Curious, I ran toward the sound. I moved closer to the gunshot, slowing my steps as the noise grew louder. The forest was still unnaturally quiet, and I slipped between the trees, keeping myself hidden as best I could. I didn't know who had fired the shot or what was happening here, and I wasn't stupid enough to walk straight into danger without knowing the situation. As I crept forward, a sound reached me, someone crying. I followed it carefully until I finally saw them. A man in his mid-30s knelt on the forest floor, his fishing cap tilted forward as he clutched a motionless woman in his arms. The truth was obvious the moment I saw her. She had shot herself. The gun was still loosely clutched in her limp hand. Seeing this, a sharp mix of heartache and panic hit me all at once, but I forced the feeling down and kept watching. A few feet away, on a fallen tree trunk, lay a small boy, maybe 10 years old. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his clothes were soaked in blood. He looked like he could die at any second. The man clutched the woman and shook violently. "K, cat, cat," he whispered, then suddenly shouted, "Cat, honey, oh God, oh fucking God." The woman didn't respond. Her head was half destroyed from the shot. Footsteps crashed through the trees, snapping branches, and another man burst into view wearing a blue t-shirt. His eyes widened as he took in the scene. "What the hell happened? Did you?" Before he could finish, the man holding the woman choked out, "She couldn't do it, oh, fuck." He closed her eyes with trembling fingers, trying and failing not to look at her ruined face. After a long, painful moment, his gaze drifted to the pale boy on the stump. His face twisted with grief. He picked up the gun from the ground, stood on shaking legs, and whispered, "What do we do now?" "Give me the gun, Kenny." "I'll do it," the man in the blue shirt said softly. The man, Kenny, handed him the gun and staggered away, barely keeping himself upright. Watching all this, I felt shock ripple through me. Not because of the suicide, not even because the dying boy was about to be shot. What stunned me was that I knew these people. These were characters from the Walking Dead Telltale game. The man holding the gun was Lee Everett, history professor, convicted felon, the protagonist of the story. I had played the game years ago in my past life. I still remember Season 1 almost perfectly, at least the main event. I never got around to playing the later seasons, but Season 1, yeah, that one had always been my favorite. Seeing familiar faces eased something inside me, but I stayed careful. This world wasn't exactly the one I remembered. Things were already different. My knowledge might not save me. Lee raised the gun. His face was tight with remorse. The boy, Duck, barely breathed as he stared blankly at his mother's body. Lee whispered something, swallowed, and pulled the trigger. The boy went still. Lee closed his eyes, pain twisting his features. He turned to leave. That's when I stepped forward, letting a branch snap under my foot. Lee spun instantly, gun raised. His eyes widened when he saw I was a kid. He hesitated, then slowly lowered the weapon, studying me like he wasn't sure if I was a threat. I watched him carefully too, muscles ready in case things turned bad. "Kid, what are you doing out here?" Lee asked, tucking the gun into his waistband. "Hello, mister. I'm lost," I said, letting my voice shake. "I got separated from my family. Could you help me?" He tried to smile warmly, though the grief in his eyes made it weak and tired. "I can help," he said softly. "But first, where did you get separated? Do you know where your family might have gone?" His gaze flicked to the sword at my hip. I was at a motel, far from here, I said, breathing unevenly on purpose. We were attacked by the undead. I ran into the forest during the chaos. My dad and uncle said they'd go to Savannah if things got bad. Can you tell me how to get there? Tears welled in my eyes, fake but convincing. I hated lying, but dying was worse. Lee's shoulders relaxed just a little. I'm sorry you went through that, kid. We're heading to Savannah, too. You can come with us. Maybe you'll find your family there. I nodded. He motioned for me to follow. Come on, I'll introduce you to the others. We walked through the trees. After a minute, he glanced at me. My name's Lee Everett. What's yours? My name is Max Walker, I answered honestly. He chuckled. You know, we call the undead walkers. If it was a joke, it wasn't a good one. I just nodded. He sighed and kept walking. Eventually, the woods thinned, opening into a clearing beside a train track. A small group stood there, faces pale, eyes empty, grief hanging over them like a heavy fog. My gaze drifted across the group, and then I saw her. The baseball cap, the red hoodie, the small frame, the wide, tired eyes. Clementine. I stared, stunned. She looked about my age, maybe a little younger. What's going on here? I kept staring at her, confused. She was supposed to be around 9 years old, so why did she look older? That was my first thought. She looked closer to season 3 Clementine, except for one thing. Her eyes. They were still innocent, still gentle, still untouched by the cruelty that would eventually harden her in the original game. And now that I thought about it, even Duck, the boy Kenny had just lost, looked older than he should have been. The people were the same characters, but the details were off. The world itself wasn't matching the story I remembered. That realization made my stomach tighten. If the story wasn't following the same path, then my future knowledge might not help me at all. Max? Something wrong. Lee's voice cut through my spiraling thoughts. Only then did I realize the entire group was staring at me. Awkward, confused, almost concerned. I've been standing there frozen, staring like an idiot. I quickly turned my eyes to Lee. He looked genuinely worried. Sorry, I got lost in my thoughts, I said honestly. No point making him suspicious. I understand, Lee said gently. Don't worry. They're good people. I'll introduce you. He started walking again. Who's the boy? Where'd you find him? Kenny asked, wiping his eyes. His voice was still thick with grief, even if he tried to hide it. In the forest. He's coming with us, Lee replied calmly. Kenny straightened himself and shouted, voice hoarse. Everybody get in the train. We're leaving this goddamn place. No one argued. Grief hung over the group like a suffocating fog. We climbed into one of the train cars, 5 of us in total. Kenny was up front, driving. I set my sword beside me and leaned against the metal wall. Hi, I'm Ben. What about you? I turned to see an 18-year-old boy sitting beside me. His posture screamed nervousness, maybe even fear. Max Walker, I replied. He nodded quickly, eager to talk. Where'd you get the sword? It looks really cool. He wanted conversation. I didn't. Found it, I said flatly. Indeed, a fine blade. Useful tool these days. A man with a long, heavy coat and a beard white as Snow stepped closer, guitar in hand. I'm Charles, he said with a kind smile. This place was my home for a few months, till these folks found me. I nodded slightly. I didn't want to talk to any of them. Attachment was dangerous. In this world, everyone could die, me included. Better to stay detached. They kept trying to talk, but I only nodded along. Eventually, realizing I wasn't interested, they stepped out of the container to get some air. That left me alone with Lee and Clementine. They sat together, whispering quietly. I sharpened my hearing without looking directly. Lee, why is that boy so scary? Clementine whispered, glancing at me nervously. Why do you think he's scary? Lee asked softly. I don't know. He was staring at me with those scary eyes. Her voice was so quiet that even I struggled to hear it. Lee glanced toward me. I pretended I hadn't heard anything, keeping my eyes on the floor. He turned back to her. Don't be afraid of him, Lee said gently, though she didn't look convinced. Maybe he just finds you interesting. Oh, really? He find me interesting, she whispered shyly. Lee nodded. Yes, and it's good to talk to someone your age. Try to make a friend. I'll try, she murmured. I blinked. Do I really look that scary? I looked down at myself. Torn clothing, dirt everywhere, scratches from branches. I looked like a feral stray. Maybe that was why she was scared. Or maybe she was scared of everyone after what she'd just gone through. I sighed internally and dropped the thought. Suddenly, Lee's voice snapped, loud enough to echo through the train car. What the fuck did he do? Swear. Clementine muttered automatically under her breath. I'm gonna go talk some sense into Charles. Don't worry. Nobody's ending up like Duck, Lee growled, standing abruptly. Don't be mad, Clementine whispered. He didn't answer. He just left. And then it was just me and Clementine. She kept glancing at me nervously, but I ignored her. Exhaustion pressed down on me. Days without proper sleep had worn me thin. For once, this place felt safe enough. So I closed my eyes and drifted into sleep. Water hit my face. Cold drops splashed across my skin, shocking me awake. Instinct kicked in. I grabbed the gun behind me and aimed it in one smooth motion. Clementine froze. She stood there, trembling, clutching a water bottle like it was a shield. Her eyes were wide with fear. I'm sorry, she whispered. I looked around. No danger. No threat. Just a terrified little girl and a dripping face. I lowered the gun, letting out a frustrated breath. Why the hell did you throw water on me? I snapped. Being ripped out of sleep left me raw and irritated. You were crying, she whispered, and mumbling about your mother. I blinked, touched my cheek, felt the wetness that wasn't from the water. Fuck, another nightmare. I couldn't even sleep a few minutes without breaking down. I clenched my jaw, pulling myself together. Clementine watched me, small, scared but trying to be brave. Do you miss your mother? She asked carefully. I didn't want to answer. I didn't want to talk. So I stayed silent. She hesitated, then tried again, even softer. Don't worry, you'll find her. Lee will help. He's a very good person. She died a few weeks ago, I said flatly. I didn't explain further. Her face fell instantly. Tears welled in her eyes. She turned away, but before curling up in the far corner, she whispered, I'm sorry. Her voice cracked. She hugged her knees and lowered her head. Her small shoulders trembled. I stared, confused. Why was she crying? It's not like her parents died. Maybe it was everything. Duck, Kaja, the grief surrounding the group. And Clementine was still just a child. Maybe she'd been holding it in. I wiped my face and looked out through the open train door. The train sped across the tracks, the autumn wind hitting my face. Cold, sharp, refreshing. The scenery was beautiful, but sleep wasn't coming back. Not after that. Not when nightmares waited behind my eyelids. I sat quietly, watching the scenery slip by as the train rattled along the tracks. The metallic rhythm was almost calming, almost enough to distract me. Until I heard it. A faint growl, barely audible. But with my hearing, I caught it instantly. I turned and saw Clementine still curled up in the corner of the train car, hugging her knees. Her head was down, but her stomach, that's where the sound came from. She was hungry. It looked like the entire group had nothing to eat. And I did have food, 3 small cans in my pack. But I didn't want to give any of it away. I needed it. I had no idea how long I'd stay with this group, or if I'd even survive with them. So I ignored it. Her stomach growled again, louder. I ignored that too. Then came a third time, even louder, and she flinched in embarrassment. Before I could stop myself, I opened my backpack and walked toward her. She lifted her head when she heard my footsteps, eyes wide and nervous. Here, I said, holding out 2 cans. Eat something. You sound hungry. She blinked at the cans, then at me. Do not you need it? She asked softly. No, I'm fine. I'm not hungry, I said. Not a complete lie. You need it more. So take it. Her hand trembled as she reached out. Thank you, she murmured. You're very kind, but 1 can is enough. You can take the other back. I looked at her. She was clearly hungry, and those 2 small cans wouldn't even make a proper meal. Why was she even trying to give it back? No, I don't need it. I have more. Just eat, I said, turning away. No, you're lying, she blurted. I saw inside your backpack. You only have 1 can left. Please take it. I froze. Right? Forgot to close the damn bag. The flap hung wide open. Anyone could see the single can inside. Awkward. Still, I didn't need much. I could hunt easily. But giving away food in this world felt wrong. Dangerous. Stupid. You never knew what tomorrow would bring. I looked at her again, tiny, shaking, starving. Too pitiful to ignore. I wanted to be cold. Heartless. The kind of person who survives. But old habits die hard. Just take the goddamn thing. I muttered, more irritated at myself than her. I turned away before she could thank me. From the corner of my eye, I saw her quietly open both cans. A small smile tugged at my lips. Then, to my surprise, she stood up and walked toward me, holding both cans. She was smiling, still timid but trying to be brave. "It's how about we each eat one can," she suggested softly. "That way you won't be hungry, and I won't feel bad eating both." I stared at her. Stubborn little thing. Not wanting to argue, I took one can from her hand. We sat side by side in silence, eating. After a moment, she spoke again, her voice small. "I'm sorry for throwing water in your face." "It's fine," I said casually. "And I'm sorry for being an inconsiderate jerk. I didn't mean to remind you of your mother." "I'm really sorry." Her face crumpled with guilt, her eyes glimmering with tears, as if she hated herself for even bringing up the topic again. I looked at her sad expression, confused as to why she was so upset. She hadn't done anything wrong. "It's fine. Stop apologizing and eat," I said. Her shoulders drooped as she quietly resumed eating. A few minutes passed before she spoke again, hesitating. Can I ask something?" "If you don't mind," she said, looking at me. I nodded and kept eating. "Why are you bald?" I paused mid-bite. What kind of question was that? I ignored it. She leaned closer. "Did you shave it off with your sword?" Her questions were getting dumber by the second. "No," I sighed. "Lost my hair from cancer. Normally, it grows back after a few months without chemotherapy, but if you have chemo long enough, your hair can be permanently damaged." I returned to eating. I'm sorry," she whispered. Her eyes softened with genuine pity. "When my mom cuts my hair too short, I complain a lot, but hearing what you went through..." Her voice grew fragile. "It must have been really hard for you." Her gaze was almost painful this time. I was already getting irritated by how many times she'd apologized. "After a while, you get used to it," I said. "Now eat." I focused on my food, eating faster. Maybe then she'd stop. Of course, she didn't. "Why are you alone? Where's your family?" Her sincerity told me she wouldn't let it go. "I got separated from my family," I said. "They were heading to Savannah. So I'm going there." Her eyes lit up instantly. She smiled so wide it almost startled me, her whole face glowing with excitement. It was the first time I'd seen her truly happy. "You too?" "I'm going to Savannah to look for my parents. We can help each other. We can look together. For our family." I didn't have the heart to tell her. Her parents were dead. But with all the changes happening, I wasn't even completely sure anymore. So I just nodded. That was all she needed to explode with energy. She launched into a rapid-fire barrage of questions, her expression bright and animated, as if she'd finally found someone her age to talk to. She asked where I used to live, how I'd lost my group, and what my life used to be like. What school did I go to? I ignored most of the questions. She didn't stop. If anything, she got even more curious. Eventually, I snapped. "Kid, can you shut up for a second?" I groaned, rubbing my temples. She puffed out her cheeks and glared at me. The transformation was instant. Seconds ago, she was timid. Now she looked like an offended house cat. "I'm not a kid," she snapped. "You look the same age as me." "I'm 14, I said. "About to be 15 in a few days." Her eyes widened, then she giggled. "Oh, well, I'm already 15. I turned 15 2 days ago. So you're the kid." She giggled again, proud of herself. I blinked. I genuinely thought she was younger. "Well, even if you're older by a couple of days, you're acting like a baby," I muttered. "Baby?" She crossed her arms, glaring. "I'm mature for my age. And smart too, got A's in all my classes. From the look of it, you're dumb, baby." She argued, glaring. "If you're smart, why are your questions so dumb they're making me dumber?" We glared at each other. Her face twisted in irritation. Then embarrassment flushed across her cheeks. She grabbed her can and hurried to the other side of the car, sitting with her back half turned as she ate tiny, angry bites. She kept sneaking, embarrassed glances at me between mouthfuls. I leaned back against the wall and exhaled. What the hell was that? One moment, I was avoiding conversation, and the next, we were arguing about who the kid was and who the baby was. Middle school cafeteria nonsense. Just because my body was 14 didn't mean I had to act like it. Mentally, I was 17, not some brat arguing over nothing. And Clementine, how did she go from scared little girl to arguing with me like we were old friends? Why did she switch so fast? And now she was sneaking shy glances at me again. Why were girls impossible to understand? Honestly, I wasn't sure who confused me more, her or myself. Before I could think further, the train car door slammed open. Lee stepped inside, holding a gun. Lee walked closer, rubbing his forehead. What a crappy day. He sat down beside Clementine. Yes, the crappiest day, she muttered, glancing up at him. I had to agree. It hadn't been a good day for their group at all. 3 people dead, Lily stealing the van and running off after murdering Carly, forcing them to take the train. No wonder everyone looked dead inside. Did you talk to Chuck? Clementine asked quietly. Lee nodded. Yeah, he explained himself, and he made some good points. Look, we're not going to let anything bad happen to you, but there are precautions we need to take, just in case. Clementine's face tensed with worry. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Seeing her expression, Lee softened. Don't worry, sweetheart. She lowered her head. Okay, so what should we do? We'll figure something out when we get to Savannah, Lee said. But until then, I need to teach you how to protect yourself. And we need to do something about your hair. It's too long. Someone could grab you again. Her shoulders slumped. She glanced at me, specifically at my bald head. When she realized I was watching, she quickly snapped her gaze away. That sound good, she murmured. Lee stood. You need to protect yourself, not just run and hide all the time. Clementine pushed herself up and brushed off her clothes. I understand. All right, hold this. He handed her his pistol. It's heavy, not like a toy gun, she complained, surprised. Yes, it's heavy, Lee chuckled, but you'll get used to it. Don't be afraid of it. It's protection if you use it right, but always know where your finger is. Don't put on the trigger unless you intend to fire. Understand? Clementine nodded. Okay, I understand. Seeing her so nervous but still trying made Lee smile. To aim, you look through the top, down that notch, he explained. She nodded seriously. Then Lee looked at me. Max, could you put that beer bottle on top of the box? I grabbed a few empty bottles from the pile and set them on the crate. Thanks. You want to learn how to shoot too? Lee asked. I'm good. I already know how to use a gun, I said. But thanks. Lee nodded, then cupped a hand over Clementine's ear. Whenever you're ready, shoot the bottle. Think of it as a walker's head. Always aim for the head unless it's not a walker. Then go for the leg, arm, or anywhere. Clementine stiffened. I don't want to think about that. Right, Lee said gently. That's a lot for your first day. Just breathe and shoot. She took a deep breath and fired. The bullet whizzed over the bottle. Aim a little lower, Lee said calmly. She tried again. Missed. Tried again. Missed. Then, on the 4th shot, crack. The bottle shattered. Lee, I did it. I really did it, she shouted, practically bouncing. Meanwhile, I nearly had a heart attack. In her excitement, she was waving the gun directly in my face. Hey, are you trying to kill me? Stop pointing that thing at me. I yelled. She froze, eyes wide, then yanked her finger off the trigger and lowered the pistol. She couldn't look at me. I couldn't look at her either. Sorry. Did I scare you? She asked softly. This girl is dangerous. I ignored her, not from anger, but because she made me drop my guard. I couldn't afford that. Clementine, Lee said sternly, that was dangerous. Never point a gun at anyone unless you mean it. Understand? She nodded quickly. They kept practicing, and Clementine eventually hit another bottle. Her grin was bright and proud. I just imagined they were walkers. The scary ones, she said. Lee smiled, though there was sadness behind it. Duck's death still fresh in his eyes. That's good, but bottles don't move. Walkers do. We'll practice more. At this rate, you'll be an expert in no time. Clementine beamed. It felt good, like I was in a movie. Lee chuckled, but the hurt beneath the smile didn't fade. Then she turned to me. Max, don't you want to try? She offered. I already know how to shoot, I said flatly. I don't want to waste ammo. She offered a shy smile. Are you nervous you might miss? It's okay. I won't laugh. I can help you if you want. Here, try. She held the pistol out. I ignored it. Instead, I looked at the 3 bottles she'd stacked on the crate. I reached into my pocket, pulled out 3 small rocks, and flicked them all at once. Crack, crack, crack. All 3 bottles shattered. Lee and Clementine stared at me, stunned. Wow, Max, you hit all 3, Clementine whispered, eyes shining. I hadn't meant to show off, but after the way she talked, I couldn't resist proving her wrong. Damn kid, Lee laughed. You've got a natural talent. You could compete in a tournament. His smile, warm and proud, reminded me painfully of my dad. I swallowed hard. I missed him. I hoped he was waiting for me in Savannah. What's wrong, Max? Why do you look sad? Clementine asked softly. Her sudden perceptiveness hit me like a slap. And no, nothing's wrong, I said quickly. I just remember my dad. He used to compliment my aim too. Don't worry, kid, Lee said with confidence. We'll find your dad. Yes, Clementine added, smiling brightly. We'll help you find your family. I nodded, voice quiet. Yeah, thanks. Clementine rubbed her ears. Lee, my ears are ringing, and my hand hurts. That's normal the first time, Lee said. You'll get used to it. But more importantly, we need to trim your hair. Clementine stiffened. Just a trim, right? Lee pulled out a pair of scissors. Enough so no one can grab you again. She pouted. Okay. Lee laughed softly. Don't mope. It's a good thing. He sat her down, and I watched from behind, curious. Do you know how to cut hair? She asked nervously. Lee hesitated. Not really. Her eyes widened. I'm going to look like a boy. A small laugh escaped me. Her head snapped toward me immediately, glare sharp enough to cut steel. I pretended I saw nothing. After a few seconds of staring, she finally turned back around. But think about how much safer you'll be, Lee said. I'd rather be dead, she muttered, irritation clear. Shush, Lee said, snipping away. She looked like she was being tortured. Strands of her long hair drifted to the floor. Finally, Lee stepped back. All right, all done. We need something to tie these pieces. I have hair bands, Clementine said. Lily gave them to me for sleeping. Lee took them and tied her hair into 2 short ponytails. There, all done. Clementine immediately grabbed at her hair, feeling how short it was now. Her face fell into a deep pout. Yeah, she hated it. I was about to say something when... Screech. The train brakes screamed. The entire car lurched as the train began to slow. What the hell happened? Why are we stopping? Lee asked, frustration leaking into his voice as he stepped out of the train. Clementine and I followed him out. The moment we looked up, we understood why the train had screeched to a halt. A massive gas tanker truck hung off the bridge above us, its back end dangling, swaying slightly in the breeze, ready to drop straight onto the tracks. It blocked the entire path forward. Fuck! 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 Kenny shouted, gripping his hair as he stared at the tanker like it had personally ruined his life. Clementine gasped softly beside me. She wasn't used to seeing Kenny this furious, not after everything he had already endured today. Maybe we can walk from here? Ben offered timidly. That is a stupid fucking idea, Ben. Kenny snapped. Ben immediately shrank back, staring at the ground. Why don't we just push this thing out of the way? Chuck suggested. The train can handle it. It's not filled with milk or water, Kenny barked. It's a goddamn gas tanker. If we hit with the train, we'll all be cooked, served up like perfect dinner for the walkers. His face twisted with grief and rage. You need to hold yourself together, Chuck said firmly. This is your crew. Kenny stepped closer, eyes burning, but Chuck didn't budge. You're not in the right mindset right now, Chuck added calmly. I silently agreed. Losing both his wife and son only hours ago, no one would be thinking straight. Beside me, Clementine fidgeted nervously, her fingers twisting into her sleeves. Hey, deep breaths. Kenny's just having a moment. Lee's got this. I whispered. It'll be okay. She nodded, though the worry didn't leave her face. Lee stepped in between the 2 men, giving me a quick, grateful look before speaking. Look, we're all frustrated, Lee said firmly. But fighting won't fix anything. We need to calm down and figure out a plan. Kenny, we don't have time to... Calm down. Kenny cut him off. Look around, Lee. We're in the middle of fucking nowhere. Anything could kill us out here. Lee opened his mouth to respond, but, yo, if you keep screaming like that, you're gonna get your face chewed off. The voice came from above. All of us snapped our heads up. A man and a woman stood on top of the bridge, peering down at us. The man had shouted. Kenny instantly raised his gun toward them. Hey, put that thing down, the man yelled. We're just talking. We've got guns too if you want to make this a thing. Lee stepped in front of Kenny. Put it down, he said sharply. If they wanted to attack us, they would have done it already. We don't need more death today. Kenny breathed hard through his nose, but finally lowered the gun. Are you guys going to be trouble? The woman asked coolly. Because if you are, we'll just walk away. No, Lee replied quickly. We're friendly. We've just had a lot happen today. Everyone's on edge. The woman studied him for several long seconds. That's what everybody says, she muttered. I know, Lee said, hands raised slightly. But trust us, we're not bad people. We just need help. The man nudged her. Come on. They look like they need it. She didn't answer right away, still watching Lee with hard eyes. Finally, she spoke. You've got a problem with your train. Of course you do. Well, it's not impossible. Someone needs to come up and take a look. Maybe we can figure out a way to move the truck. Lee nodded and stepped forward to climb, until Kenny grabbed his arm. Be careful, Kenny muttered. If anything goes sideways, we're not letting them walk. Lee nodded once, then climbed the ladder. I'm coming up, he called. You better not be murderers or thieves. Well, the woman replied, leaning over the edge. You'll just have to find that out for yourself. Clementine tugged on my sleeve. Max, do you think Lee will be okay? I'm worried. Don't worry, I said. They look like good people. I hope so. I don't want anyone else to get hurt. Her voice trembled slightly. I recognized the two strangers, Krista and Omid. They were good people in the original game, but this world was already different. I couldn't be sure. Suddenly, Clementine grabbed the ladder and began climbing. Hey, what are you doing? Come back. It's not safe. I hissed, but she kept going. I had no choice but to follow her. At the top, Lee spun around. What are you doing up here? He scolded. Then he noticed me behind her. And you too, Max? He looked exhausted. Clementine lowered her head like a scolded puppy. The bridge around us was a mess of abandoned cars, crashed, burned out, piled together in a twisted traffic jam stretching across the span. It felt like a frozen snapshot of panic the moment the world ended. There are kids here? Omid said, surprised. Damn, been a long time since I've seen any kids. Shit, what are your names? I'm Max Walker, I said. Clementine swallowed. See, Clementine. Lee folded his arms. Oh, so he gets to swear now? You're not going to stop him? He muttered at Clementine, who pretended not to hear. Omid grinned at his girlfriend. See? Told you they weren't bad. Krista ignored him and looked at Lee. You're not their dad, are you? Is he down there? Is it that obvious? Lee asked weakly. It is to me, she said plainly. I'm not their dad, and he's not down there, Lee explained. I found Clementine on day 1 when this started. I was heading to the prison. That's cool, Omid said brightly. Did you get any prison tattoos? Lee blinked. No, I never got that far. Krista's gaze shifted to me. What about the boy? I found him in the woods. Lost and alone, Lee said. Separated from his family. We're helping him find them. Krista nodded slowly. And the guy who pointed the gun at us. He cool. Lee glanced down at Kenny. Kenny lost his wife and son a few hours ago. He's not in the best state of mind. Krista's expression softened. Damn, that's rough. I'm sorry for what happened. Omid leaned over the railing. But seriously, the train is awesome. The train's useless unless we move that tanker, Lee said. We'll help you, Krista replied. Lee smiled, relieved. We appreciate it. But if we see anything we don't like, Krista added sharply, we're walking away. Fair enough, Lee said. So we can't just blow through it, right? Omid asked. Krista sighed at him, then looked back at us. If we can get this tanker down, we'll have more options. Lee nodded. Okay, we'll start with that. Krista looked at Clementine and me. You two, head back down and watch your step. Let us adults figure this out. It's not safe up here. She gave us a small, gentle smile. We nodded and climbed down, leaving the three of them to talk through the plan. Down below, the group members looked at us with disappointment. Are the people friendly? Ben asked quietly from the corner, looking at both of us. They seem like nice people. They decided to help us? I answered. Ben's face brightened. Finally, something good, he said with a relieved smile. What's he doing up there? Kenny asked, glancing toward the bridge with a worried expression. Trying to figure out how to move the tanker, I replied. I hope they don't bring trouble, Kenny muttered, folding his arms. I walked over and sat on the railway track. Clementine followed and sat beside me. Together, we stared up at the bridge, hoping everything up there would turn out okay. Close to us, Chuck was playing his guitar. I listened carefully. The sound was beautiful. The cold wind howled through the trees, making their branches sway. Autumn leaves drifted gently to the ground. It was strangely calming. You seem interested in the guitar. Want to learn? Chuck offered, noticing me watching. I didn't really want to spend time learning guitar, so I was about to decline, but before I could speak, he placed the guitar in my hands. Give it a try. Maybe you'll like it. I nodded. Clementine scooted closer, watching me closely. I tried playing too, she said, leaning over. But it's really hard. My fingers hurt, so don't press too hard on the strings. I nodded at her advice, focusing on the strings. All right, Chuck said, adjusting the guitar for me. Before you start, you gotta understand proper posture. Sit up straight. Rest the guitar on your lap with the body parallel to the ground, shoulders back. Use your forearm to balance it, and keep your thumb behind the neck. He helped me position it correctly. There you go. Now you're ready to play some chords. But first, you need to learn how to strum. He gently guided my hand across the strings. You seem to know a lot about guitar, I said. Well, kid, Chuck said with a soft smile, I've been homeless for about 14 years. Had to do something to earn a little money. Guitar was the answer. Played on the street, made enough to eat. I nodded quietly, strumming as he showed me. Chuck, why did you become homeless? Clementine asked softly. I used to live in Athens, Georgia. With my family, he said. Life wasn't going good. I became an alcoholic, lost everything, ended up homeless. His soft smile faded into a frown as he remembered his past. Clementine's face fell. I'm sorry. Chuck gave her a gentle smile. Don't be. I've only got myself to blame. So, kids, stay away from alcohol. I focused on the guitar, and strangely, I was learning fast. Too fast. Before I knew it, I started mimicking Chuck's patterns almost perfectly, as if my hands already knew the motions. I stared at my fingers, fascinated. My body copied movements flawlessly. My mind absorbed them instantly. Angel, thank you again, even if I'd already thanked him a dozen times. Max, you're playing so good, Clementine exclaimed, eyes wide. God, you're good at this, kid, Chuck said, staring at me with suspicion. Did you already know how to play? No, this is my first time touching a guitar. I just copied what you played, I said honestly. Chuck's eyes widened. If that's true, then you're God-gifted. Do you know what song you just played? I shook my head. Dust in the Wind. Old song, but beautiful, and very hard to play. Nobody learns it just by watching. Not even experts. He grinned, shaking his head. Crazy. I smiled shyly at the compliment. I knew it wasn't perfect, but it was decent. Thank you, I said, handing him the guitar back. Chuck, can I learn too? Clementine asked hopefully. He smiled and handed the guitar to her. A moment later, Krista, Omid, and Lee climbed down from the bridge. Guys, this is Omid and Krista, Lee introduced them. The group just stared at the newcomers, silent and tense. Well, this is getting awkward, Omid muttered. Like I said, it's been a rough day, Lee sighed. Omid nodded. We just wanted to say hi. And, your train is very cool, he added, trying to lighten the mood. We're not looking for charity, Krista said firmly. We can help each other. They'll be joining us, Lee said. Right now the plan is to cut that tanker loose. We need to find something that can do the job, then get moving. Sounds like a plan to me, Kenny replied without looking away from the bridge. Can you show me more about the train? Omid asked, eyes shining. Krista looked at Clementine and me. Is it okay if I talk with the children for a bit? Lee nodded. I wasn't sure why she was so interested in us. Why don't I show you how this thing works? In case something happens to me, Kenny said, sounding exhausted. Really, Ken? Lee asked, concerned. It's probably for the best. I'm not in the right mind, Kenny admitted as he climbed into the locomotive. Omid followed eagerly. Oh, Lee, there's a station over there, Kenny called out, pointing. Check it out. Maybe you'll find something to cut the tanker loose. Lee nodded. Krista sat beside us with a gentle smile. What are you two up to? We're learning guitar, Clementine said proudly. And Max is really good. Oh, you're good with the guitar? Krista asked. No, not really. It's my first day. Chuck's the one who's good, I said, glancing over. But Chuck had wandered away, examining the train. Then 2 walkers stumbled out of the trees behind him. Chuck didn't notice. My heart dropped. I grabbed my sword and sprinted. Chuck, look out. Behind you, I yelled. He spun around, eyes wide, backed up in fear, and fell. The walkers lunged onto him, pinning him as he struggled desperately to keep their jaws away from his face. Somebody help me, he yelled, panic cracking his voice. I reached him and swung my sword. One clean sweep. Both walkers' heads dropped to the ground, jaws still snapping. Chuck lay there trembling. You okay? I asked, kneeling and checking for bites. Luckily, nothing. Thanks, kid, Chuck wheezed. You saved my old ass. Lee and the others ran over. Is everyone okay? Anyone bitten? Lee asked, out of breath. He scanned me with frantic hands, touching my arms and shoulders as if expecting blood to pour out at any second. His eyes were wide, almost trembling. We're fine. Nobody's bitten, I said calmly, wiping blood off my blade with steady hands. Lee's shoulders sagged in relief. Clementine pressed a hand to her chest, exhaling sharply, while Krista let out a quiet breath through her nose. Everything okay over there? Omid called from the train. He leaned half out of the doorway, gripping the manual against his chest like a life jacket. We're good, Lee shouted back, lifting his arm high. Lee turned toward Chuck. Could you please stop wandering off alone? Stay with the group. You almost got your ass bitten. I had been thinking the same thing. How did he not hear the walker behind him? I heard the growls from far away. At first, I thought maybe he didn't hear because he was old, but when I walked closer, the sharp stench of alcohol hit me like a punch. He always smelled like alcohol, but this time it was strong. Chuck's feet wobbled slightly. His head drifted from side to side, like he was struggling to keep the world from spinning. Man, are you drinking? Lee asked, narrowing his eyes. Chuck nodded, looking away. I was just feeling a little down. Had some. His voice was low, ashamed. He climbed into the train with slow, dragging steps. Lay off the drink for a couple of days. Not the right time, Lee said sternly. Chuck only nodded again and disappeared inside. We walked back toward the railway. Lee fell in a step beside me. Good job, kid, he said. I glanced at him briefly, nodded once, and kept walking, boots crunching over loose gravel. But don't do anything that reckless again, he added, giving me a sideways look. Well, the kid is brave, Krista said, eyes lingering on my sword. She folded her arms and smirked. And that sword of his looks sharp. If my boyfriend saw it up close, he might pass out from joy. Why would he do that? Hasn't he seen a sword before? Clementine asked, tilting her head. He's seen plenty, Krista laughed, mimicking Clementine's tilt. He just loves old stuff? Anything from the Civil War. He's like an old white man obsessed with history. Who even does that anymore? Lee lifted a hand politely, smile tight and awkward. I actually happen to be a black history professor, he admitted, eyes crinkling in amusement. Krista blinked, then chuckled. Wonderful. You two will be thick as thieves. She nodded at my sword. Did you teach him how to use that? Lee shook his head. No, he already had it when I found him. Looks like he figured it out on his own. I didn't figure anything out. I just swung and prayed it worked. Well, it's a good thing he knows how to defend himself, Krista said. She put her hands on her hips, studying me. Kids need that now. I know how to defend myself, too. Clementine announced proudly, puffing out her chest. Lee taught me how to shoot. Krista raised an eyebrow at Lee. Don't judge me, Lee said quickly, lifting both hands defensively. I'm not, Krista replied. Teaching her to defend herself is the right thing. She sat down on the railway track. I sat beside her, with Clementine sitting close to me. Lee nodded gratefully. Suddenly, a strange buzzing sound came from Clementine's dress. She flinched and grabbed her pocket, pulling out the walkie-talkie. Her fingers trembled as she clicked the button over and over, her brows pinched tight. After a few seconds, the noise stopped. She exhaled shakily, shoulders dropping, and forced a nervous smile. "Hey, that's a pretty useful radio for her to hold on to," Krista said, glancing between Clementine and Lee. "It's busted, but it means a lot to her," Lee said, giving a reassuring nod. But I kept staring at the radio. It wasn't busted in the original game, if I remembered correctly. There was a man she talked to in secret. A man who claimed he knew where her parents were. A man who told her not to tell anyone. A man who eventually kidnapped her in Savannah. And Savannah, a city torn apart by survivor factions fighting each other, while a massive horde roamed the streets. The group got caught right in the middle of that chaos. That's what I remembered. But now, with everything changing, I wasn't sure anymore. One thing I was sure of, I didn't want to stay with this group for long. I knew how much trouble they'd get into, and I didn't want to deal with it. Once we reached Savannah, I'd go my own way. I didn't have time to care about anyone here. I had to find my family. To do that, I needed to survive, and getting tangled in their problems would only drag me down. But still, that radio worried me. I pushed the thoughts aside and looked toward the train station in the distance. On the roof, faded paint spelled out, "Survivors inside." Interesting. Lee started walking toward the station. Clementine hurried after him, almost trotting to keep up. "Hey, sweetheart, why are you following me?" Lee asked, turning back. "Well, we're a team, aren't we?" Clementine said, lifting her chin slightly. "That's true, but don't you want to hang out with Krista?" Lee asked. Clementine looked back at Krista. "It's okay," Krista said with a small wave and a friendly smile. Clementine relaxed, smiled back, and returned to Lee's side. "Well then, Clementine and I will check out this train station, all right?" Lee called to the group. "Wait, let me come too," I said, running forward. My sword bounced against my hip with each step. "All right, come on in," Lee said. Clementine's brows furrowed, her lips tightening into a thin line. She clearly didn't want me coming. I didn't know why she was annoyed, but she needed help. The train station was dangerous in the original game. They almost got killed by the walkers inside. With everything changing, I wasn't sure they'd survive without backup, so I tagged along. We reached the station. Paint chips covered the ground. A cold breeze moved through the broken structure, stirring piles of old leaves. Clementine hugged herself and stepped closer to Lee, gripping the back of his shirt. Broken glass glittered faintly across the floor. Lee walked ahead, shoulders squared, scanning every shadow. Clementine stuck close behind him, her steps light and uncertain. I stayed behind her, eyes sweeping every corner, hand resting on my sword. Our footsteps echoed quietly through the empty station. On the roof, in big faded letters, "Survivors inside." The whole place was barricaded. Every window boarded shut, every door sealed tight. We checked each entrance, even the back one. All locked. Finally, we spotted one opening a window above the door, slightly open. "Well, all the doors and windows are locked except that top one," Lee said, pointing at the narrow window above the door. "If I boost one of you up, you can slip inside and unlock it." "Let me do it," Clementine blurted, hand shooting into the air. "No, let me do it," I said, stepping forward before Lee could decide. Lee nodded. "Okay, Max, climb on." "What? Why does it get to go?" "I asked first." Clementine snapped, frustration twisting her face. "Clem, sweetheart." Lee sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "We don't know what's in there. Max can handle more right now. Just let him. But I can handle things too. I know how to use a gun now," she insisted, voice quivering with desperation. "Please, let me do it." "This isn't up for discussion," Lee said sharply. Clementine's shoulders slumped. She dropped her gaze, small face tightening with anger. When she looked at me, her eyes weren't afraid anymore. They were resentful. "You're ruining everything for me," she muttered, turning away. "Ungrateful kid. I'm trying to keep her alive." I stepped on Lee's shoulders, but a voice exploded from inside the station. "Who the hell are you? Get away before I shoot." An old man aimed a shotgun through the small window, his entire body trembling. Lee rose slowly, hands raised. Clementine clutched his shirt and hid behind him, trembling. Look, man, we're not here for trouble, Lee said, panic threading his voice. He shifted slightly, shielding Clementine. We just need help. There's no help here. Get out before I shoot, the old man yelled, finger twitching on the trigger. My hand instinctively settled on my own gun. Being a kid had one advantage. He didn't take me seriously. He didn't even glance at my way. Then, a scream tore across the tracks. We all whipped around. Fucking shit. A massive horde's coming right at us. Kenny shouted, pointing past the train. And he was right. A flood of undead surged from the trees. Dozens of newly turned runners sprinting at the front, hundreds more crashing behind them like a tidal wave. Everybody, move. Get to the station now, Lee yelled. The group bolted toward us, panic written across every face. Lee spun back to the old man. Please, there are people out here. We just need shelter for a few minutes, he begged. If you don't open this door, people are going to die. No, I'm not dying for any of you. Get away, the old man shrieked. Lee slammed his fist against the metal. You stubborn old bastard. Look behind US. Do you want US to die out here? But the old man's mind was collapsing under fear. His hands shook violently, eyes darting everywhere but ours. Finger hovering on the trigger, jerking sporadically. Lee, Clementine whispered. I'm scared. Then another scream split the air. Chuck, no. God, no. Ben's voice. I spun toward the tracks. Chuck. He was on his back, arms shaking as undead tore into him, ripping, pulling, chewing. His screams shredded the air. Then silence. Seconds later, he rose again, eyes empty, body twitching, and sprinted toward the group. The others fired wildly, trying to slow the sprinting dead behind him. Kenny yelled over the chaos. Why the fuck are you just standing there? Open the damn door. But the old man still blocked the way, wide-eyed and shaking. Get away from my door. I won't die for you. I won't. His hands jerked. Bang. His skull exploded. Clementine screamed. Lee grabbed her, frozen in shock. He turned toward me. My gun was raised. Realization rippled across his face. I holstered my weapon and climbed onto his shoulders before he could react. I hauled myself through the window, dropped inside, and unlocked every bolt. The door slammed open. Go! Get in! I shouted. The horde thundered closer. Newly turned runners shrieked as more undead poured from every shadow. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Lee held the door wide, voice cracking. Move! Move! Come on! The group sprinted toward us, terror carved across every face. Clementine clung to my side, shaking violently as the horde swallowed the train behind us. A heaving mass of bodies, nothing but death. Then, a sharp scream tore out from behind me. Clementine. I spun instantly, heart slamming into my throat. An old woman stood right behind me, ragged breath brushing my cheek. Her hair was matted, skin stretched tight over sharp bones. A rusted kitchen knife trembled in her hand, raised high. Her eyes were empty, wild, stripped of humanity. How'd I missed her? Between the yelling, gunfire, and horde, I'd been tunnel-visioned, focused outside, not inside. Her arm tensed, muscles twitching. The knife aimed straight at my chest. No! Clementine screamed, throwing herself at the woman, grabbing her wrist with both hands. The knife stopped inches from me. Steel scraped through the air. Clementine's fingers dug into the woman's wrist, twisting, straining. Her face contorted in terror and effort, teeth bared. The old woman hissed and slashed downward. The blade tore across Clementine's hand. A deep cut opened instantly. I didn't hesitate. I kicked the woman hard in the stomach. She slammed into the wall with a sickening crack, collapsing, hatred burning in her fading eyes. Clementine covered her mouth, trying not to scream, clutching her bleeding hand. I shot the woman in the head. She was dying anyway. It was better to stop her from becoming a bigger threat. Clementine huddled in the corner, arm bleeding, face twisted in pain. Lee stared at me, shocked, then turned back to the door as the group neared. We're coming. Hold the door open. Kenny yelled, sprinting with everything he had. Omid and Krista followed. Ben was last. The undead were already on him. I fired at the closest walkers. Lee snapped back into focus, giving Ben enough time to dive inside. Our guns clicked empty. All we could do was pray. One by one, the group burst through, Ben stumbling in last. Lee slammed the door shut and locked it just as the undead crashed into it from outside. Why the fuck are there this many walkers in a remote area? Kenny growled, bracing the door. This isn't the time. Everyone, find something heavy. Barricade it. Lee shouted. The horde surrounded the station. Walkers slammed into every wall, every window, every inch of the structure. Metal groaned, creaking like it would collapse. Arms shoved through shattered gaps, clawing desperately. We dragged desks, shelves, crates, anything heavy against the doors. I drew my sword, hacking at the arms reaching through the windows. Limbs fell. Blood sprayed. More hands pushed through. Above us, on the roof, scraping, pounding. The dead tried to break through. We were surrounded. Inside, the noise was deafening. Growls, bangs, and cracking glass. Everyone was terrified, and even I was too. The barricaded windows bulged inward. The ceiling creaked. The building trembled under the weight of thousands of undead. It wouldn't hold. Then, a deafening boom tore through the world. A blinding white flash lit the station. My ears rang. Far away, the sky erupted in fire, an enormous cloud swallowing the tree-line. One thought hit me. The government dropped a bomb. The explosion was so massive that the walkers reacted instantly. Thousands turned toward the blast, flooding in that direction. Not all, but most. The pressure on the building eased as the majority of the horde peeled away. We were still surrounded, still in danger. It had been a full week now. Even after most of the undead followed the explosion, hundreds still remained. We were still trapped inside the train station, surrounded on every side. Every hour, every day, they thinned out a little. A week ago, there were hundreds. Now, maybe 80, maybe 90, still too many to escape. The building was somehow still holding. Barely. We spent the entire week reinforcing barricades, shoving anything heavy, desks, crates, metal cabinets, against every crack, window, and doorway. Anything to keep the undead from squeezing inside. But the smell, God, the smell. Even after we dragged the 2 rotting bodies into the north office and tossed the severed hands in with them, the stench only worsened. Hot, sour rot filled the air. It clung to our clothes, our hair, our skin. We ate with it, breathed it, slept with it. Everyone was exhausted. Even I was worn down, and I never tired easily. The others must have felt like the walking dead themselves. We slept in shifts, 2 people awake at all times. The rest tried to rest, but with constant scraping and pounding on the walls, no one ever truly slept. But the worst problem wasn't the undead. It was the food. The 2 old people I killed had stockpiled enough supplies for maybe 2, maybe 3 weeks for themselves. With 6 of us, it vanished fast, no matter how we rationed. Then the water ran out. Now everyone was hungry, thirsty, irritable, angry. Arguments sparked over nothing. Even Lee snapped once, something I'd never seen. And Kenny was unraveling. The groaning outside, the hunger, the grief, the sleepless nights, it was dragging him right to the edge. We were in terrible shape. We couldn't stay much longer. All week, helicopters had been flying overhead. Sometimes 1, sometimes 2, sometimes more. Every day, miles away, explosions shook dust off the ceiling. Deep, rolling booms that made the floor vibrate like a giant heartbeat. Operation Cobalt. I remembered enough from the Walking Dead show to know what it meant. The government's last attempt to contain the outbreak by napalming entire cities, burning walkers and civilians alike. Every night, distant fireballs glowed on the horizon. Orange, then red, then black. Every time the bombs fell, everyone flinched, wondering if the next one might land here. Across the room, Clementine lay curled on her side. Lee sat beside her, his hand on her back, watching her like he was afraid she might stop breathing. Her fever hadn't gone down. The cut on her hand was swollen, hot, and leaking pus through the filthy bandage. We had no medicine, no clean water, nothing. She grew weaker every day. Now she couldn't even sit up without help. Her chest rose and fell too fast. Her lips were cracked. Her eyes were half open, unfocused. She hadn't spoken in 2 days. I kept looking at her, then at the door, then at the windows rattling under undead hands. If we didn't move soon, she would die. All of us would. But we were trapped, surrounded. No food, no water. And thirst was killing us faster than hunger. In my bag, I had 1 bottle of water and 1 can of food. My emergency supply, the one thing I swore I would never share. I missed the days when I casually handed out extra cans thinking I could just hunt for more. Now I understood what arrogance really was. But Clementine needed it more. It was because of me she was in this condition. I moved beside her and knelt. Her eyes fluttered at the sound. "Clementine," I whispered. "Here, drink some water." She tried to focus on me. Her lips parted, but no sound came, just a trembling breath. I uncapped the bottle and lifted her head gently. Her small fingers reached for it, but trembled helplessly. She didn't have the strength. So I held it to her lips and helped her drink half the bottle in tiny, painful sips. For the first time in days, she smiled. Just a little, but she smiled. Lee stared, disbelief and relief mixing in his tired eyes. "Where'd you find water?" he asked softly. I didn't answer. I kept holding the bottle. Behind me, I heard it. A harsh, rapid breathing. Loud, unsteady. The kind of breath someone takes right before they snap. "Kenny." A moment later. "You gotta be fucking kidding me." He stormed over, face red and wild. Clementine flinched at the sound of him yelling. "You had water?" he barked. "You were hiding water while all of us damn near dying from thirst." "I wasn't hiding it," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've had it since the beginning. In my backpack. That's the definition of hiding it, kid." Kenny roared. Before I could stop him, he ripped the backpack off my shoulder and tore it open. His hands dug through it, then froze. Slowly, he pulled out the can of food. His face twisted into something ugly. "What the hell is this?" he snarled. "You are hiding food too? While we're starving?" Every pair of eyes locked on the can. Sunken, desperate eyes. Not angry, hungry. Lee immediately stepped forward, blocking him. "Leave the kid alone. It's his. He kept it from the start. It's his choice whether he shares it." Kenny shoved the can against Lee's chest. "We're a group, Lee. We share what we have. We don't hoard like rats. If everyone acted like him, we'd all be dead." He jabbed a trembling finger at me. "We fed him. We gave him water. We kept his ass alive. And he's hiding food from US." The silence felt heavy enough to crush me. I had no answer. "He's just a kid, man," Lee snapped. "Let it go." Kenny's jaw tightened. His nostrils flared. "Let it go," he echoed, voice shaking. "Let it go. While we're starving, dying of thirst, listening to bombs drop every night, wondering if we'll even see morning." He stepped closer, chest nearly touching Lee's. "Our lives are on the line, Lee. All of ours. You think I'm going to let it go?" His finger jabbed Lee's chest again. "And now he's wasting water on someone who might not even." Lee's eyes went cold. "Dangerous. Who might not even make it through the few days," Kenny finished. "Every day she's worse. She's becoming a 3. Lee didn't let him finish. His fist cracked across Kenny's jaw. Kenny staggered sideways into a stack of crates, then lunged back with a guttural snarl. They crashed to the floor, fists flying, blood smearing across the concrete as they grappled and cursed. "Stop! Please stop fighting!" Ben cried. Krista grabbed Lee's arm. Omid wrapped both arms around Kenny's waist and hauled him back with everything he had. After a brutal struggle, they tore the two apart. Both men were panting, bruised, swollen, glaring like they wanted to kill each other. "Enough!" Krista shouted, voice shaking. "Can you two not see where we are? Look around. This situation is already hell. Don't make it worse." Omid held Kenny back, his own hands trembling. "The walkers are thinning out," he said, trying to sound steady. "Slowly. Maybe another week, and they'll mostly be gone." "We don't have water," Kenny growled, wiping blood from his mouth. "We won't survive another week." Silence. Because he was right. Then instead of fighting, Krista said, looking at each of us, "We need to figure out how the hell we're getting out of here." Lee wiped blood from his lip. Kenny glared at him, jaw trembling with rage. Krista stared at Clementine like a candle burning down to its last inch. Ben hugged himself, shaking. Outside, the undead clawed and pounded at the walls. We were running out of time.
Hello, everyone. As we wrap up this video, I want to share a quick note. I have a Patreon account. If you'd like to support me and enjoy on-demand audiobooks, you can become a Patreon member. Alternatively, you can check out my Google Drive link, which has 500-plus novel audiobooks available through my Ko-fi or Patreon shop. I appreciate your support.